Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel.
Greetings, everyone. Hello, and thanks for joining us on number 41 of the open mic. Hope everyone's doing okay today, this evening, this morning, wherever you may be located. For me, it's 7 o'clock at night. So tonight we're going to be talking about depositions. And I actually had planned on doing this a little bit differently and telling a story, basically of how one thing connects to another, to another, to another through the depositions. And this was all based on a Reddit post that Banana Man had made some months ago. And I decided to do that differently because I think if I do that, it's going to take away from the entire story, the broader spectrum. So hopefully everybody's okay with that. And I mean, we can tell the bigger story, but this connected story, but I think it's better this way because we have from Mark Rohr alone, it's just how things developed through what he testifies to in the depositions, and then these other folks too. So you got to remember there's about 30 people that gave depositions, roughly. I haven't counted them. I think that's about right. Some of these people gave 2 depositions. Like Mark Rohr, he did a part 1 and a part 2. Deb Strauss, I think she gave 2. And there were some other ones as well. With that being said, and before I let everybody say hello, if there's a deposition that people want to discuss out there in the chat, tonight I'm probably going to talk about, it's going to be mainly Mark Rohr. And if we got time, we'll get into Tom Fallon. With that being said, if there's another deposition that somebody wants to touch on or talk about, hey, throw it out there. And if we can get to at least some portion of it tonight, we will. If not, we'll do it another time. They're not going anywhere. There's nothing too earth-shattering in the depositions, but there are some really interesting connections if you spend the time to make the connections. Anyway, with that said, let's let everybody say howdy and hello. Alice?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight.
BB.
Hey, everyone.
Checking convictions, Linda.
Hello.
From the Far East, Disco.
It's the witching hour near here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for dropping by for the depots. Just dropped in to see what the depositions were doing.
And I don't know this fella named Galataki. I've heard of him before, but if he has time, he can say hello. Oh, I don't know if he might. Apparently, he can't come to the mic. As everyone knows, Galataki is my second oldest son. Thanks for coming, son. Jess Rhonda. Can't hear you.
Hello?
There you go.
Is this thing on?
It is now.
Okay.
Jinxie?
Hello, peoples.
Sapricop.
In a world where all those deposed are filthy liars, welcome to our discussion.
Christina. Perfect.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, Dr. Silkman.
Hold on a sec. I have to confer with my attorney, Tom Fallon. And my letter, is okay. Yes. Hi. Welcome, everyone. Dr. Silkman.
And Sammy.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Open Mic.
That's funny. Yeah, that's actually pretty funny what Dr. Silkman just pulled, because as you'll see, when I pull this first one up here, this first deposition of all the lawyers that are in the room and who's a lawyer for who, and it's nuts. It's absolutely crazy. There we go. So this first one here, it's going to pop in there. As I indicated, these depositions that they really they had to scare the crap out. I mean, before we get started, disagree, everyone. These depositions had to be pretty scary ground for Manitowoc County. Of those people that have read them. Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I would say
Potentially.
so.
Potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there was just absolutely no way that they would ever have allowed this to proceed to an open trial. They would have done pretty much whatever they had. If they hadn't been canceled, the depots, they would have done whatever they had to do to settle it out of court. Because there's a much larger story and things that went on that really never made it to the public eye, to the public view. So, with that said, understand that what we're starting here with Mark Rohr. Now, these are not. I'll start with Mark Rohr because he's really the one that started the ball rolling with the and the investigation into Manitowoc. He's the one that raised the level because he went to Madison and raised the level of this because of things that basically this got dumped in his lap. He inherited everything. So for him, I guess he was really just trying to protect himself and, I guess the office. I don't know. I mean, I don't know really what kind of person he is, but I think he was smart enough to have put this off into other people's bailiwick to protect himself legally for what could have potentially happened in the future. So this first deposition happened, as you can see, on August 5th, 2005. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to read sections. I've highlighted a lot of it I've highlighted all of this first one, but we'll go as far as we need to go. We'll stop when we need to stop. I'm going to read sections at a time and stopping so you're not just listening to me drone on about reading, because there's going to be questions and there's going to be things that are going to pique people's interest. And I'm going to just kind of scroll through this first one here and kind of show the number of lawyers. Of course, we've got Glenn and Kelly, and then this Claude Cavalli on behalf of Vogel and Manitowoc County. Interesting. Then we got Timothy Bascom. Vogel hasn't been there yet, so Bascom, he's on behalf of another Manitowoc County lawyer. And then Amy Dole on behalf of Kasoric in Manitowoc County. And then John Mayer, and this is Kasoric's personal lawyer. And then he's got a lot of backup here. I'm just spilling it. That's 3 right there. That's Jay McCambridge. He's on behalf of Mark Rohr. That's his personal lawyer, I guess. Or, no, I'm sorry. He's the DOJ lawyer on behalf of Rohr. So that's interesting as well. And then present Stephen and Jody. Now, you have to understand there are other meetings that are more lawyers than this. This is not by any means all the lawyers that were ever present during these depositions. Sometimes there's more than this. Anyway, for this particular one, those are the ones listed. August 5th, 2005. The deposition start. Mm-hmm.
Jack, really quick, were you showing this on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, see it. Okay, maybe I just need to refresh. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, well, you probably should refresh because I'm looking at it on my phone and I can see it.
Yeah, it's there.
It's there.
I've had it open for several hours. So
I didn't break it. Oh yeah, you need to refresh. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Stephen and Jody were present.
Yes.
And that's about where you're at. You were just getting ready to start with the examination.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah. Oh yeah. I know what I was going to say. This is August. The deposition started, I think, in February or March. So these happened over the course of several months. So it went from like February or March until the end of October. I believe Jean Cachet's was the last one, and I think it was the 26th or 28th of October 2005.
The 26th.
Yeah, there you go. So here we are in August. And so anyway, let's get rolling with this. And I'll read for a portion, and we'll get to a stopping point, and then have a discussion and for questions and whatnot. If there's no questions, then we'll move on. So here we go. Glenn is questioning. Question, Mr. Rohr, good afternoon. Answer, Good afternoon. Question, you received a subpoena in this matter, correct? Answer, I received it via fax from my attorney, yes. Question, and that subpoena had an attachment? Answer, it did. Ms. Dole, I guess that's supposed to be, did you swear him in by Mr. Glenn? And did you? I don't think you swore the witness, so they swear him in. Okay, starting again. Mr. Dole, I'm showing you Exhibit 94. Do you recognize that? Answer, yes, I do. Question, do you want to take a minute just to look at the other pages, and can you tell me what that is? Exhibit 94 identified, and I really want these exhibits. Answer, this appears to be similar to the portion of the fax I received from my attorney. Question, okay, you produced a number of boxes today when you came into the room, correct? Answer, yes, I did. Question, I'm going to ask you some questions about the contents of those boxes, but let me first invite your attention to the attachment itself. First, sir, is there anything that is named in this attachment that meets these two criteria? First, it's something that's under your control, and second, it's something that was not produced here today. Answer, I'm sorry. If you could repeat that? Question, sure. Answer, I'm confused by your question. Question, the attachment names certain items in a numbered paragraphs. Do you see that? Answer, yes. Question, okay, I'm asking with respect to anything named in the attachment that is both under your control and not produced here today. For example, a document on which you're asserting a privilege, a document which you've decided on your own isn't relevant. Answer, everything that is in possession I have brought with me today on this file. Question, okay. And that's the circuit court case number for the Avery case involving Ms. Bernstein as the victim. Do you remember? Answer, I do not know. I'd have to look at the file to make that determination. Question, could you do that? I think it's 85 CF 118, but I'm not. Mr. Covelli, FE. Mr. Glenn, yeah, FE, right. In the old days. Answer, it's 85 FE 118. Question, okay. Are there any records that relate to 85 FE 118 that exist but were not named in the attachment? Answer, again, I'm again confused by your question. Whatever I have in my possession, I have brought with me today from my office. Question, that is, you have not limited what you have produced today to the items named in the attachment. Answer, correct. Question, okay, that will save a lot of time. Thank you. Let me go through the file. Let me go through this, if I may, with you. Paragraph 1, and rather than my reading it aloud, since we've got the attachment marked as an exhibit, let me just ask you whether you have documents that, in your judgment, fit within paragraph 1. Answer, the only thing that I do not have from a Mr. McCambridge, that calls for a yes or a no. Answer, no. Glenn, question, I'm sorry, can you expand your answer? Answer, there was a traffic case in our office that was involving a speeding trial with Mr. Avery, and I cannot locate that file. That file has been dispensed of. Question, okay, with the exception of that, is everything that you have produced today, is everything that is within paragraph 1 material that you have produced today? Answer, yes. Question, okay, paragraph 2 reflects our interest in files relating to Gregory Allen. This is another reason I wanted to read this, if you pardon my little interruption here. Gregory Allen is mentioned throughout all of Roar's testimony, both parts 1 and parts 2. Is there anything that you have produced today that was designed to comply with paragraph 2 of the attachment? Answer, I have complied with paragraph 2 of the attachment. Question, okay. Are you able to identify for me as we go through these paragraphs, those documents or boxes or compilations of documents that would comply with the paragraph? Answer, to the best of my abilities, I will do that. Question, okay, would it be easier for you to do that as we go through this, or wait until we finish going through the list and then have you break the boxes apart? Answer, whatever you prefer. Question. Well, then let's do it as we're going through it. Let's go back to paragraph 1. Can you tell me where the documents are that are called for by paragraph 1? Answer. We brought with us a total of today 5 boxes. Mr. McCambridge, actually, I think having done this a few times, it would be simpler to go through the subpoena and then go through the boxes one by one. I think that would expedite things, Mr. Glenn, and that's fine with me if that's Mr. Cambridge. Yeah, offer that option. That's my suggestion. Mr. Glenn, and do you want to follow your counsel's suggestion if we do that today? Witness. If that's acceptable, yes. Mr. Glenn, okay. Witness, I would like to do that by Mr. Glenn. Question, okay, let's go back to paragraph 3 here. On paragraph 3, there are documents that you have produced today that you believe fit within paragraph 3. Answer, yes. Question, okay, are there documents within paragraph 4 that you have produced today that you believe are, I'm sorry, let me withdraw that. Are there documents that you have produced today that fit within paragraph 4 in your judgment? Answer, yes. Question, and so I don't have to keep asking the same lengthy question with respect to paragraph 5? Answer, yes. 6, 7, 8, and so forth, and so on. Then to line 22. Question, okay, so now let's make sure that we're in agreement on our terms, okay? You have a couple of times made reference to documents in your possession. And you can tell me that what you mean by, can you tell me what you mean by that? Answer, meaning in my physical possession that I'm aware of in the DA's office. Question, and do you include possession within the term possession concepts that are used in the criminal law, such as third-party possession, such as, other forms of possession? Answer, I do not. Question, okay, so is what you're telling me that there are maybe documents that are under your control but not in your possession? Answer, correct. Question, and those have not been produced? Answer, by whom? Question, by you today. Answer, that's correct. Question, can you identify for me all documents that relate to any of the paragraphs that are listed in the attachments that are not within your possession but are within your control and have not been produced today? Answer, I guess if there's any police reports by law under section 971.23, any police reports that may be in possession of all the departments I technically have control of by statute, I haven't contacted them and asked them to come today. Question, okay, anything else? Answer, no. So the only documents that you would consider to be within your control but not within your physical possession have not been produced today would be such matters as police reports under 971.23 section 1. Answer, correct. Question, okay. Mr. McCambridge, Steve, I'm sorry. I don't think we put the protective order that's in place on this record, and if you would, that would be great. Mr. Glenn, sure, we could do it now. The record should reflect that prior to going on the record, the parties, as well as counsel for the witness, agree that any documents produced today would be subject to the same protective order that's already in existence and would be treated confidentially. Mr. McCambridge, thank you. Mr. Glenn, question. Now, let's go ahead and break down the boxes on a paragraph-by-paragraph basis. Mr. Rohr, can you identify the documents that you have produced today that you believe would fit within paragraph 1? Answer, today I brought 5 boxes with me that comply with all the paragraphs that are contained in your attachments, sir. Question, so are you able to respond to the question I asked? Answer, I'm sorry, that's what I understood the question to be. Question, okay, my question perhaps wasn't clear. I'm asking you to tell me whether you were able to go into the 5 boxes that you were produced today and identify for me which documents were produced under paragraph 1 to the attachment. And then I ask which documents were produced under paragraph 2 and go through the document in that order. Mr. McCambridge, Steve, if I may make a suggestion, he's brought everything he's got. And I think it would just be a lot faster for all of us if we just went through the box by box and he can just share everything he has. Mr. Glenn, well, that's Mr. McCambridge, because if the boxes, well, I didn't organize them myself, and The witness can't speak to this, but my sense is there are going to be parts of boxes responsive to different numbers, and we could be here until midnight. Mr. Glenn, that's what I'm asking the witness, and that's in fact, Mr. McCambridge's right. Mr. Glenn, what the situation is, Mr. McCambridge's right. Mr. Glenn, I'll have no problems with that. Mr. McCambridge, okay. Mr. Glenn, but I don't think that we're there yet. Question, can you tell me whether or not, in complying with the subpoena and attachment, you made any effort to separate out documents as they related to any given paragraph of the attachment, or did you just simply grab everything that you had within your possession under your control that related to Avery 85 FE 118? Answer, I did make some separations based on the attachment, yes. Question, okay, can you tell me which ones, which paragraphs of the attachment? Answer, okay, first of all, it would be probably easier to say from the lesser ones first. Question, sure. Answer, if I may do that, you're saying? Question, whatever works for you. Answer, all right, for example, I'm complying with number 8. I can pull that out if you want me to keep it separate. Would you like that? Question, sure. All right, answer, all right. It may take a moment here. It looks like they go off the record. And Mr. McCambridge says, and maybe you can mark this as an exhibit for today, but what's contained in this box, and which is entirely separate, and feel free to direct follow-up questions to Mr. Rohr, are background to this, and it's nothing very obscure or difficult, is that Mr. Rohr sent the file to the Department of Justice at one point in this case. The Department of Justice sent the originals back to Mr. Rohr. Included in those materials were materials from the Department of Justice file, which were copied and which still exist in Mr. Rohr's file. I wanted to see them, and not knowing what they were, and to see if there were parts of the subpoena. I view that they are. So that's what this box is. So, as I said before, Rohr started this when he made his complaint, or he presented this problem to the Department of Justice for this investigation. Okay, so here's one connection right off the bat. He sent this stuff that he presented it to the Department of Justice. He went there personally at this meeting, and then they sent all this material back plus other things that are related. So that's what we're talking about, this box here. Mr. Glenn, okay. Mr. McCambridge, it's DOJ materials that were inadvertently shipped to Mr. Rohr's office. Since they're still in his file, we're producing them. I'm told by Steve Tinker, you already have them all, but that's what they are, okay? And Steve Tinker, just to explain him, he is the person that assigns, I'm sure he has other duties, but he also assigns the various AAGs to various cases from within the DOJ aspect, the AAG's office. So he does give a deposition, by the way, by Mr. Glenn. Question, Mr. Rohr, let me just ask whether or not you can ratify what your counsel just said in his description of the box that currently has posted saying 1 and 9. Mr. McCambridge, maybe we could just mark it, put an exhibit sticker on it just for clarity for the record. Mr. Glenn, okay, that's fine with me. Is that 5? Reporter, 95. Mr. Glenn, all right. Let me repeat my question. With respect to what's now been marked as Exhibit 95, are you able to ratify the statement of counsel? Answer, I am able to ratify the statements of my counsel. Question, okay, while we're off the record, you were kind enough to go through the boxes and pull out some documents. And I'd like to take a minute and just to describe what I believe happened. And if I'm not describing it accurately, please correct me, okay? Answer, yes. Question, I asked whether or not there were categories of documents that would respond to numbered paragraphs of the attachment. And you indicated that there were in some instances, and in the rest of the instances, documents may be commingled. Is that correct? Answer, that is correct. Question. And on the table before us, you have laid out certain categories of documents which you believe almost entirely and perhaps entirely relate to a given paragraph of the attachment. Is that correct? Answer, yes. Question. It's possible that there may be a small number of documents that do not relate to the numbered paragraph of the attachment and instead relate to a different attachment, or perhaps relate to the numbered paragraph or an additional paragraph of the attachment. But by and large, these documents all fit within the categories that you described to me earlier, correct? Answer, yes, with your qualification. Question, okay. And what you produce are documents that fall into category 1, 3, 8, and 9 as 4 separate groups of documents, correct? Answer, the piles in front of you. Question, yes. Answer, are you referring to yes? Question, okay. Now you've indicated that beyond these 3 piles in front of me, there are 3 boxes on the floor behind you that also relate to the category 1. Is that correct? Answer, category 1. Said also, as you qualified earlier, commingling this file. Question, okay. So let me clarify that. The 3 boxes that are on the floor then, which I think we should also go ahead and mark with an exhibit sticker, just so we've got it covered. Those documents are primarily category 1, but include other categories as well. Or did you rather just say they are intermingled? Answer, in that current statement, is they're intermingled. Question, okay, fair enough. Is there anything else that you have produced today that is not in the 4 stacks on the table between you and me, exhibit 95, the box in front of you, and the 3 boxes on the floor? Answer, what is your question, please? Is there anything else that you brought with you today in response to the subpoena that is not contained within the description I just made? Answer, this is everything I brought with me is in the room, yes. Question, well then, let's take a moment off the record and apply exhibit stickers in the boxes and discuss how we want to handle these stacks. So they go off the record for a second. I'm going to pause here. We're on line 22. We're going to pause if there's any comments, questions, so forth and so on.
So one thing you might want to do, Jack, is for maybe folks that are new or not really understanding what's going on here. Yep. Can you probably explain what this attachment is they keep referring to and why it's so important to establish these different boxes?
Unfortunately, I will explain it to the best of my ability. Unfortunately, we do not have the exhibits or the attachments, and I can't explain it fully. I can explain it in the degree of when Glenn and Kelly sent out the subpoena, these various subpoenas, the one that Rohr got, he was asked to bring basically everything he could within certain parameters that were outlined in that subpoena. I can't tell you what all is in the subpoena. I do know that basically they asked for everything they had on Stephen Avery. And in addition to what they brought, there were other things that were commingled, such as information on Greg Allen. It was in his file, as you'll see later on in the deposition reading, which is really strange. So that's the best way I can explain it without having the attachment or the subpoena, because we don't have that stuff. Does that help a little?
Yeah. Yep. So something is either being hidden or there's something in there that they kept out.
I think Glenn has a copy of something that they haven't provided via discovery. I think that's what he's alluding to. And Rohr is scared to death that he has it.
Well, it's actually more, well, it's that. And in addition to that, it's how if you notice how Rohr said that he brought everything that was under his control or his possession, but they quantified that with that statute, whatever it was, police reports and so forth. So he's basically saying there are things that, yeah, he's probably is in control of, yet he may not have possession of, like police reports and these other things. So that gives him an out for other documentation, right? So also,
It's just interesting that Glenn is spending so much time trying to identify each box as related to whatever in the record. So that's what I was getting at. Is there he knows something they don't know?
Well, there's more than that, and as you'll see, it's how the information within Manitowoc is stored and where they keep it. It really is. I just kind of shook my head as like, really? Because as you'll see, it's just I'm not gonna. It's just I just have to go through the process of how these things are stored, short term, midterm, and long term.
Now,
crazy.
Do we know what each, like how he says, like you've complied with paragraph 1, you've complied with paragraph 2. We don't know what those paragraphs were, correct?
That's in the subpoena, the attachment to the subpoenas, and we don't have that. There may be references to it within the deposition. I can't remember exactly, but we don't have that document.
All right.
Which is unfortunate, really.
I'd like to have it.
I'd like to have that, and I would also like to have all the attachments because there's a lot. Well, I say attachment. I'd like to have all the exhibits that Glenn and Kelly had because they had everything. I say everything. They had all the reports that Deb Strauss and Amy Lehman did. Plus, they had other things too. So, really interesting. Yes.
Can I just make the quick comment on how meticulously prepared Stephen Glynn was? You could tell right off the bat. They haven't even started yet.
No.
And you could tell that he's really put a Mark Rohrer in a corner straight off the bat. Stephen Glynn has done his homework. He knows a hell of a lot of stuff because remember, he's got all the main documents in front of him. He's got copies of everything. And Rohrer is thinking, oh my God, what's this guy got that I haven't got? So I like the way he approached it. He really has made Rohrer feel very, very uncomfortable from the get-go without even asking him a question. Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Absolutely. And I think that, like I said, I think they were completely, the entire county were really afraid of this going to trial at an open format because they literally had too much. And, again, here we are in August, and there had already been, I can't tell you how many because I don't, the depositions are not dated. Actually, I may go through and do that.
They certainly weren't prepared for an attack like this from the two attorneys, Kelly and Glynn. And it's sort of remarkable in a way that they got shut out of the Stephen Avery trial because these guys would have been absolutely meticulous, especially in Stephen Avery's trial. I'm not saying that Buting and Strang did a bad job, but you could tell that both these attorneys did their homework. They did their homework, and it shows.
Yeah, they were seasoned. They stopped doing criminal stuff. I don't know what year, but they had stopped doing criminal stuff some time before and went into civil, I guess. But they were criminal attorneys, and I would say that they were really good, both of them. So, any other questions, comments?
He was just laying a proper foundation, and he was just going to build a block wall all the way around, and he was going to hem them in, and they weren't going to be able to get out. And I think they felt that. Each deposition just cemented that. You know what I mean? They were doomed.
Yeah, and that's another thing that civil depositions. That's another thing that people need to be aware of. The civil depositions are not held in a courtroom. This is probably held in somebody's law office or some conference room that they rented out, whatever. They're not at trial in courtroom with a judge, but they are legal, and they carry the weight of legality. So if there's something that happens during the civil deposition, it can be presented at trial. So that's why you'll see these various objections. And, these cat fights I think there may be one coming up that they kind of get into a little bit of a squabble. I'm probably going to skip it because these happen throughout the entirety of the depositions and not just with Rohr. There are other ones too that go on for, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, and they're really ridiculous. They really are. So I'm probably just going to kind of skip around those and move on because I think there's one they get into in this one that Glenn's asking. He starts asking, I think, about Rohr's history and his background, and immediately his lawyer objects. But he's trying to elicit from him, when he started practicing law and build that foundation, which is important, So, any more questions, comments, for any clarity I can make before we move on? We good? Good to go? Okay. Let me get back over here. All right, we're going to start back. We're on, looks like we're on line 20 here. All right. Question. Okay, Mr. Rohr, let's see if we can recap some of the things that have gone on while we're off the record. First, we have placed exhibit stickers on 96, 97, 98 on the 3 boxes behind you. Is that correct? Answer, yes. Question. And those boxes, to reiterate, contain documents that may be responsive to more than one paragraph of the attachment to the subpoena. Answer, yes. Question. We also have on the table between you and me the exhibit 99, which is another box containing 4 rubber-banded groups of documents. Is that correct? Answer, that is correct. Question. And the documents that are within the rubber bands are documents that were referred to in the earlier questioning as being in the piles that were on the table between us, correct? Answer, yes. Question. Okay, let me ask whether you are able to assure counsel in this case that you will be able to maintain the documents contained in Exhibit 95 through 99, consisting of the 5 boxes, without allowing anyone to delete anything from the boxes. Answer. That will be done, yes. Question. Okay. And similarly, without adding anything to the boxes, again, without notifying counsel. And that, let me take that back, because I want you to be able to do that with respect to anything that has come out of the box as well. Can we agree that anything that goes into or out of the box will be the subject of notice to counsel? Again, answer. Again, I'm confused by your question. Just because that's been parties that have reviewed those files, I don't know what you mean by that. I apologize. Question. No. Mr. McCambridge, after today, everything stays in the box. Mr. Glenn. Question. Right. And if, for example, you find it necessary in the exercise of your official duties to remove some of these documents, that's fine with us, so long as we're given notice as to what's been removed and when it will be returned. Similarly, if something is located by you that by accident had not been observed earlier, and you realize it should be part of this, if you want to make an addition to the box, you'll let counsel know. Answer, yes. Question, is that acceptable? Answer, yes. Question, okay, now let me come back. Let me get these boxes off the table for a moment. Let me invite your attention to paragraph 2 of the attachment. What I think about is what I think of as the Gregory Allen files paragraph. Do I understand from your earlier testimony that there are documents that relate to Mr. Allen that may be spread among the boxes that we've identified as exhibits 95 through 99, but that are not segregated and identified as Mr. Allen's prosecution files? Answer, that is correct. Isn't that interesting? Question, is there a group of files that are identified as Mr. Allen's prosecution files among the documents that in boxes 95 through 99? Did I read that right? Yep. Answer, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, okay, why is that? Answer, because our files are stored in various places. Files may have been destroyed since this time period. Question, and are you telling me that your office does not have any original files relating to any files against or any cases against Gregory Allen? Answer, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, Okay, that is, your office does not possess such files. Answer, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, okay, when I ask a question that with a negative and you answer no, I want to make sure we're not confusing things. Does your office continue to possess original files relating to Gregory Allen? Answer, no. Question, paragraph 3 refers to materials which I take it may be in any of the boxes that were already identified as exhibits, correct? Answer, the exhibits from today? Question, yes. Answer, yes. Question, paragraph 4, would your answer to that question be the same? Answer, yes. Question, now let me talk about paragraphs 5, 6, and 7 as a group for the moment, and then we can come back to and separate them. First, with respect to those 3 paragraphs as a group, I understand you have not produced anything that you would consider responsive to paragraphs 5, 6, and 7. Is that true? Answer, that is correct. Question, okay, and that's because you believe they do not exist. Answer, based on the best of my knowledge and asking the questions to my office, that is correct. That is the correct answer. Question, okay. Correct question. Question, now, you'll note that paragraphs apply not only to policies and procedures, but also to, for example, training materials, education materials. Paragraph 7 makes reference to memoranda, education or training materials concerning exculpatory evidence. I mean, I could go on with examples of this. Is it your testimony that you have no materials that are responsive to any of my aspect of those paragraphs 5, 6, and 7? Answer, at this time, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, can you tell me what you did in order to determine whether your office was in possession of, for example, manuals, handbooks, memoranda, education, and or training materials, or documents of any kind whatsoever concerning exculpatory evidence? Answer, I spoke to Bev Badker at my office. Question, yes. Answer, and asked her if we had any of these items in the office, and her answer to that question was no. Question, did you ask anyone else in your office? Answer, no. Question, do you have reason to believe that Ms. Badker knows everything that is in your office, including the offices of other assistant district attorneys? Answer, I believe that she would be the correct person to talk to about this because she's been there the longest. Question, did you ask her to do a physical search of your premises to determine whether you possessed any of these items? Answer, no, I did not. Question, can I ask at what comfort level is that Ms. Badker's recollection without a search would be adequate to determine the existence of these items? Answer, I asked her about this and I asked her if she knew, and that was the response that she gave me. Question, so do I understand then that no one in your office has gone through an office by office basis of your premises to determine whether you have items such as those we've been discussing in paragraph 7? Answer, that would be an accurate statement. Question, would that be true with respect to any of the items described in paragraphs 5, 6, as well as 7? Answer, that would be accurate. Question, and I think I've asked you whether you yourself did such a physical search of your offices in an effort to inventory whether there are items that relate to paragraphs 5 through 7. Is that correct?
Here. Here's just
okay, it reconnected. Never mind. Sorry. Line 18. Question, if you'd like me to, did you do a physical search or anyone else or cause anyone else to do a physical search in an effort to locate documents described in paragraph 8? Answer, paragraph 8, I spoke to Bev Badker, and I also spoke to Assistant District Attorney Gail Frost, and that was the number 8, as you saw that pile that was earlier here on the table. I currently have a prosecutor by the name of Doug Jones who prosecutes sexual assaults. He's on vacation. I was unable to converse with him about paragraph 8. Question, is it your intention to talk to him when he returns to see if he is aware of anything else in your office that would comply with paragraph 8? Answer, yes, I will. Question, and if if there is something, will you notify me? Answer, yes, I will. Mr. McCambridge, he'll notify me. Mr. Glenn, that's fine, so as long as you'll then notify me. Mr. McCambridge, we understand the rules as represented here. Mr. Glenn, question. You've indicated that you spoke with Badker and you also spoke to another assistant. I don't know if you respond to my question about whether or not you conducted a physical search. Was the fact that you indicated that you spoke to these people to tell me that you did not do the search but instead spoke to these folks? Answer, I did not do a physical search of the office. Question, okay. Answer, for items 5 through 8. Question, nor again did you authorize or direct anyone else to do that. Is that correct? Answer, that is correct. Question, okay. Paragraph 9, physical search done for any of these items. Answer, no. Okay. How did you determine the existence of the non-existent items called for in paragraph 9? Answer, to the best of my ability, there were 2 people that were familiar with paragraph number 9. Question, and who are they? Myself and Mike Griesbach. Question, and what did you do and what did Mr. Griesbach do to your knowledge? Answer, I talked to Mike Griesbach about paragraph 9, and you saw paragraph 9 being compiled with on the table earlier as well. It was Mike's file that we had active since September of 2003, which we produced today, along with my active file since September of 2003. Question, okay. Answer, and we've complied with this to the best of our abilities again. Question, so you were telling me that with respect to materials covered by this time period of September 1st, 2003 into the present, the only people in your office that you would have had such materials would be yourself and Mr. Griesbach. Answer, to the best of my knowledge. I didn't discuss this with everyone. Number 9. Question, did you, for example, cause a photocopy of the attachments to be circulated among your entire office staff to ask if anybody had any of the items related to the attachments? Answer, I did not do that. Question, is that something that could be done? Answer, if I were asked to do so, I would. Mr. McCambridge, well, I don't know. Answer, by counsel's advice, I would do that. Mr. McCambridge, well, yes. Mr. Glenn. Question, well, we'll take that up in a minute, I guess. Answer, okay. The reporter's off the record, back on. Mr. Glenn. Coming back to the paragraphs related to Gregory Allen, 2 and 4 in the attachment, did your office have at any time, to your knowledge, files for cases concerning Gregory Allen? Answer, I wasn't there during this time period. We complied with the subpoena. Question, okay, does that mean you don't know if your office ever had files pertaining cases involving Gregory Allen? Answer, I can't answer that because I was not there until September of until March of 2003 when I was appointed by Governor Dole. Question, okay, so from March of 2003 to the present, your office has not had any original files relating to Gregory Allen. Answer, correct. Question, do you know whether those files, you've never seen an original file relating to any case involving Gregory Allen. Is that your testimony? Answer, that's correct. Question, the documents that are called for in this attachment have been described with respect to documents under your control, and you made an exception with respect to 971.23 type police reports, correct? Answer, are the Wisconsin statutes? Yes. Question, right. And I guess the question I have is whether there are any documents that would fit within the attachments that are not currently under your control, but have been transferred to any other location so they are out of your control. Answer, I'm confused by your question because I have difficulty understanding the question. Question, okay. Mr. McCambridge, he'll give you another question. Answer, if I may have it rephrased, I don't understand your question. Mr. Glenn, no problem. Question, have you yourself or have you directed anyone to transfer from your office at any time documents that would otherwise have been produced here today as being within the attachment to the subpoena? Answer. We transferred the file from the Attorney General's office in September of 2003 for an investigation. Question. That file, as I understand from your counsel's statement that you ratified, has been returned and is contained within the box that I think is 95. Is that correct? Mr. McCambridge. Well, actually, just for clarity's sake, the whole file, the DA's file, all came from to our office, is my understanding, and then it was sent back. Mr. Glenn. Okay, well then, Mr. McCambridge, and then it also included, I think, is box 95. I think it did inadvertently include DOJ records into our Exhibit 95, which has been maintained since that time. Mr. Glenn. Okay. Mr. McCambridge. Okay. Mr. Glenn, question. Can you ratify the statement of your counsel? Answer, yes. Question, okay. And do you? Answer, I do ratify. Question, with respect to the documents that went to the Attorney General's office or elsewhere in the Department of Justice, are you able to tell us whether you know that the documents that you've seen have been returned and are contained now in the documents that are present? Answer, to the best of my knowledge, yes. We did not document every little, Question, sure. Answer, as one would, we transferred to them as you asked. Question, and you didn't take a page-by-page inventory or anything like that, true? Answer, that is correct. Question, what I'm trying to get at, though, is whether, as you observed the materials when they came back from the Attorney General's office, there was anything that you noticed that was missing. Answer, not to my knowledge, no. Question, one last area, I think, on the Gregory Allen materials. Is the practice of your office currently, ever since you've been district attorney, to open a file on any criminal case, whether you issue charges are correct? Answer, that is correct. Question, to your knowledge, that was a policy followed by your predecessors, correct? Answer, I don't. Mr. Cobelli, objection, no foundation. Answer, I don't know what their function was, how they did things. I wasn't there. Mr. Glenn. Question, well, let's see if we can draw some inferences, okay? You've been a lawyer for how long? And this gets into an argument here. I'm not going to go into all that. It's just, they're just busting back and forth. He finally answers 1992, and then there's more arguing. I'm not going to read all that. Question, since 1992? Answer, yes. Question, and is it fair to say that your practice is that whenever you open a case, you create a file? Mr. McCambridge, objection. I don't think this is a fair question for what we're here for today. His practices in a private practice or his prior life are not about the subpoena or not about this attachment. And so if you're changing the game, let me know. Mr. Glenn, if I am, I will. I'm not. Mr. McCambridge, well, no, you are. So I'll instruct him not to answer the question because you're changing the game. This is another one of these arguments. He threatens to go to the judge. And anyway, we're going to skip down Mr. Kelly, Mr. Glenn. We're going to go on down to, that's where he threatens to go to the judge, I think. Skipping down to another page. We're on page 37 now. I think they finally agreed to just let him talk to expedite things. We're going to be real quick with this. Yeah, here we go. We'll allow a little foundation here, which he was trying to do to begin with. Okay, and so Rohr says, your question again, please, Mr. Glenn. Yes. Ever since you've been a lawyer, every time you open a new file, you've created a file folder for it, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. And when you came into the office of the district attorney, you found filing cabinets that had file folders in them, correct? Answer, yes. And those file folders related to the cases that were open in your office or district attorney, correct? Answer, open and closed. Question, right. And that would have been in the next question. And there are also file folders in there that are related to files that have been opened in your office but were since closed, correct? Answer, yes. Question, okay. So from that set of observations that you made, you were able to draw a conclusion, were you not, that was the practice of your predecessor, to open a file whenever a case was being prosecuted. Mr. Cavelli, I'm going to object. No foundation. Calls for speculation beyond the scope of the presentation. Here is a custodian. Mr. Glenn, you're allowed to answer. Mr. McCambridge, well, wait a minute. You know, you have an obligation under the federal rules and local rules to resolve the attempt to resolve the discovery disputes between us. Mr. Glenn, right. Mr. McCambridge, if you tell me where you're going ultimately, I might be able to understand these foundation questions. Mr. Glenn, fine. Let's go off the record. Mr. McCambridge, actually, I'd like to stay on the record. Mr. Glenn, okay, I choose not to get into a dialogue with you at this time. Question, how are you able to answer that question? Mr. McCambridge, well, then Mr. Cavelli, the predecessor is Fitzgerald, or who? Mr. Glenn, whoever it is, whoever his predecessor is. Mr. Cavelli, well, and see, here's another one of these stupid arguments they get into, and they let him talk. So we're going to go on down to it. So we're on page 40, line 5. Question, Mr. Roy, at the time that you were in the district attorney's office in March of 2003, were you able to form any impression as to whether or not your office had files related to the Gregory Island? Answer, in March of 2003, I wasn't aware of every single file, and even including Mr. Allen at that time. We had numerous files in our office at that time. Question, what's your file retention policy in your office? This is where it gets a little interesting. Answer, what you have in your office is you have currently open files that's in one area of the office. You have closed files in another area of the office, and this filing space is filled up, and those files are transferred to various locations. The closed files, that would be, of course. Question, okay, and what is the policy with respect to when files are transferred? Answer, what is the policy? Question, is that done on a chronological basis or strictly on a space needed basis? It's done, if you mean by chronological basis, you're saying chronological of the files? Answer. Question, yes. Answer, the age of the files, that is one of the factors, yes, and the types of files is another factor. Question, let's talk about criminal files. Is there any difference between the criminal felony files are treated in the way criminal misdemeanor files are treated? Answer, in what sense, please? Answer, in the file retention policy. Answer, no, they're pretty much treated the same, is my understanding since I've been in the office. Question, okay, can you tell me whether there is a time period within which criminal file must be kept within your office confines? Answer, no. Question, it depends entirely then on storage space. Answer, that is correct. Question, okay, so if a file has been moved out of your office, where will it be moved to? Answer, the files would be removed to downstairs basement of the courthouse behind the family court commissioner's B15 room. Question, any other locations besides that? Answer, files in the course, you understand it's a transition, and they'll also be going, I believe, to the Blue Building, as it's known. I believe it's in the county complex where storage is also of the files. Question, are you able to tell me by the date or any other general form of description what files from your office are still within the courthouse as opposed to having been transferred over to what you've described as the Blue Building? No. Question, was any effort made to search the Blue Building or the area described in the basement of the courthouse behind building B15 for files relating to Gregory Island? No. I'm going to pause right here at line 16, or yeah, we're going to pause here. He answers yes. I'm going to pause here at line 17. Questions, comments? I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. I've been reading for a few minutes. Anyone?
I just want to quickly say it's turned into a comedy show. It really has, because Glenn's basically questioning Roar about general housekeeping duties within his own office and how he keeps his files. And if you notice, he hasn't even answered. Roar hasn't even answered one question properly yet. This is all about protocol. all about protocol.
And these guys are objecting to the most basic things. For nothing, literally nothing.
Correct. That's what they're there for. Basically, so their client isn't embarrassed or inconvenienced in any particular manner. And isn't it interesting that both Stephen and Jody Stokowski were there listening to all this crap? Their eyes would have been rolling in their head.
Had to be.
Yeah, Glenn is laying a trap, and McCambridge and Rohr know it. They just have no idea what the trap is. And they're trying everything they can to stall, to divert, or to keep the trap from being set, and there's nothing they can do about it.
There's really not, and of course I know what the trigger is here, and it's upcoming, but it's really quite. It just kind of blew me away when reading through this and how he's getting to this, how files are stored, and he laid all that foundation prior because he really had to do it. How files are generated. You open, a case, event happens, you open a case file, it stays in one of the office. Within how long does it stay in the office? Well, it's basically a space, if a case gets closed and they need space, it goes away, it goes downstairs. Once that area fills up downstairs, then it gets moved to the blue building. What's really key here is who is in control. That's where he's leading. Just so everyone that's listening wonders, that's where they're leading. Who is in control of the files? That's what really matters. Because, with files, talking about Gregory Allen, as I said, Gregory Allen's not only talked about within the confines of this deposition, he also comes up in part 2, which I thought, given everything, I probably shouldn't be surprised, but anyway.
And it's important for. Go ahead, Alice.
So, the fact that he even says during that as well that some of the papers are missing, may have been missing or destroyed. Well, no, I'm sorry. Every bit of evidence, every bit of documentation should be kept, no matter what, whether it's just he went to a cafe on a policy's notebook, you know what I mean? All the bits involved should be kept and filed if somebody is still fighting for their innocence, you know what I mean? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know what their protocol is. Apricot, I know you had something else to say.
Oh, I was just going to say it's also important to note that Rohrer has tried to almost push the responsibility away from himself, and Glenn keeps coming back and making him ratify what his counselor is saying so that the responsibility remains right in front of him.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and they've not really even talked about anything like Doc said. There's really nothing here except how they handle files and just trying to get anything out of them. It kind of reminds me of many of us trying to get open records requests now. It's like, what's going on with records that they don't want to let go of? It's like I guess they do belong to the state, but they're not the personal property of, these various people. And it kind of feels that way a lot of times to me. I'm sure Christina can probably attest to that.
Yeah, it's clear that Manitowoc County puts very little concern on properly maintaining records. It's like, they never really made an effort, or at least in this case, they have just let it go from one side of Manitowoc County to the other, and Rohr did very little to make sure that they have properly gathered all the documents that have been requested. They're not taking this. They're acting like they're not taking this serious.
Well, but there's more word games, right? You notice how he answered the question.
Yeah.
When have you produced everything within confines of the subpoena of the attachment? So they're trying to play this word game again. They probably know that there's likely other documents pertaining to Gregory Allen and whatever else is in the subpoena, but they narrowed it. and said, "Hey, I gave you what you asked for."
Yeah, but they keep messing up because they keep qualifying their answers, which gives Glenn room
Yep,
to expound upon it.
that's right.
That's why the lawyer said, that's a yes or no question, but it was already too late.
Yep.
I was going to say, I reckon that Kelly and Glenn had whistleblowers and who provided confidential information. And I think what Glenn is trying to do is to lay it out on the table and say, all right, Mark, you tell me what you know and what you don't know. And here's what I know. And his attorneys that are looking after him, they know that a trap is going to be set up. And I would dare say that both Kelly and Glenn received confidential information, whistleblowers, internally, that told them about stuff. And so I reckon the whole aim of all this questioning here was, okay, here we have Gregory Allen. Did anything happen to his files after Culhane came out with a DNA result? In other words, did you treat his particular files in anything in a special or different manner than what you would do for anyone else?
That's right.
That's what he's trying to establish. And Rora's going, oh, bloody hell, I don't know anything about these files, right? So he's trying to spring a trap on Mark Roy, and he knows it too.
I just wonder also, Doc, and everyone else, I'm not sure we can't really answer this question because I don't know, but do you think it's likely, and I think it probably is, that Glenn and Kelly had an investigator or two?
Oh, no question.
Oh, for sure.
Whenever you have these type of investigations, you've got a lot of people that put in tips, right? Anonymous tips, or they don't want to give their name, but they provide information that someone from the inside only would know. And I'll tell you what, I'll take a good look at Mike Grisback here too, because his book Innocent Killer is very, very eye-opening.
There's actually more. Go ahead, Christina.
I was just going to say, I think Brenda Peterson, if she had gotten hold of anything on Gregory Allen and she knew that Manitowoc wasn't turning it over, she likely would have provided it, because she was very concerned about him, and he obviously resonated, like he stuck in her mind. And the fact that Manitowoc County allowed him to just remain free after she made a genuine effort to get him off the streets probably didn't sit well with her, being a female.
Excellent point. There were people in the know very, very early on in the investigation, and the information that they provided to very important people basically fell on deaf ears. So in effect, this was a way of restitution, getting back, so to speak. And Glenn and Kelly, they had the information. They had all the documents. And they were basically saying, okay, you tell us what you knew about these specific events. And like I said, these guys were absolutely brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, and we know from other depositions, they went in prepared, and these people were trying to say, oh, that's not my verbiage, I didn't say that. And they had their statements in their hand. So they're coming into the deposition trying to change what they told these agents because they were caught, and they knew they were caught. So, yeah.
I just want to make the comment, because I know Jeff Jones in the chat said confidential informants are causing more harm than good. That's potentially true, but I would dare say that these whistleblowers are within the offices, within their own offices, that work for the Attorney General, work as either lawyers, etc., and have basically had enough of all the covering up. So they're not random, they're not jail snitches or anything like that. I would say that these are people intimately involved with these cases that are providing highly specific information, because how do you explain how Glyn knows all this information about what's in the boxes, what documents are here and there? They know everything. They know everything.
Yeah, and I agree too that CIs can cause a lot of trouble, and so can just regular a snitch. We've seen it before so many times. Somebody trying to get out of trouble, they say, "Oh well, I'll tell you this." I think you're right. I think we have, well, as Christina said, we have people within the DA's office that were familiar with it from back in the day. They knew, or they felt 100% convinced that the PV case was committed by Gregory Allen. Period. Because they knew of all the crap that had went down surrounding Gregory Allen, 83, 84, 85, and all the. I'm sure they were very familiar with probably even police reports. I don't know that for positive, but I'm sure they were. I feel sure they were.
Who, Brenda Peterson? She knew everything. It crossed her desk. She was the assistant. So she would prepare these cases to go to court. So whatever the DA was going to do, she wrote all the paperwork. So, she was basically a legal assistant. The only thing she didn't do was go up there and dismiss all these charges. So she's literally filling out the paperwork, watching these DAs just give him a pass every time. And it had to make her sick.
Well,
right?
which is interesting.
Let me just make a point here. Brenda Peterson would not qualify as a snitch by any means, because
no, she was legal assistant.
Not identifying someone, in a crime or anything like that. She's providing information about a case. If she even did it, we don't know. We just suspect she probably did, because it's obvious they had documents that Manitowoc didn't produce, and she would be in the position to provide them. She was just someone who was sick of the BS and wanted to make things right.
Well, right. Is it also possible that they sent, so like they say, they took all this stuff to Wisconsin DOJ. Wisconsin DOJ did what they were going to do. And then when they sent the stuff back, Wisconsin DOJ included stuff that they weren't intending to include. That could also be a possibility.
Correct.
In other words, somebody in DOJ screwed up and included files that should not have been included.
Correct.
On purpose. On purpose, you mean?
Could be either way. I mean, I would imagine that the DOJ wouldn't necessarily expect there to be an inquiry, a civil inquiry, and these files get exposed in a civil manner. So maybe, accident on purpose or, whatever. But it goes back to Dennis Vogel being involved, and then in the 85 case, and all of a sudden he hauls ass in 88. He's gone. He's out. But he did alibi Gregory Allen. Another thing that before we move on here, that I've found interesting, that maybe because they weren't really involved, but they really kind of were, why someone from the city police wasn't called in any fashion. Maybe they talked to them. I don't know. It's hard to say. What I mean by talk to them, I mean Glenn and Kelly talked to someone in the city police from that time frame and knew of what all the stuff that Allen did. You guys follow what I'm saying? I haven't really talked about that before, but maybe they did talk to them and they decided not to call them forward, but because they didn't really do anything per se against Avery, so they weren't really involved. But it's possible that they got information from the city police that helped them in this right here, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because the city police knew about it, but knew about Allen for sure, and so did the county. So, okay, before we move on.
That's a good point, actually, Jax, because there were several officers in the Manitowoc Police Department who were desperate to get Gregory Allen off the streets, and the DA was just, ignoring it. And then they tried, we don't have audio to know exactly what they reported when Strauss and Lehman came to interview them. We only have Strauss and Lehman's interpretation of that interview. So maybe they were disgruntled and unhappy that it was still being, whitewashed like that. And they went to Glenn and Kelly and told it all,
Right, or Glenn and Kelly's investigators said, hey, or they told their investigators, hey, you need to go talk to these people, see what they got to say. I think that's possible. I don't know that. I'm just trying to go from another angle here, because clearly these people weren't involved in the depositions. I'm talking about the city police. However, that doesn't mean they didn't provide information. So I don't know. I could just be grasping here, but I think that that's a possibility as well. So, all right. Anything else before we move on here with some more of? I'll try to take a quicker break before I read as much in this next passage here, but I think we're going to get into a little bit more about the understanding of how files are and these cases are handled once they pass from the DA's office down to downstairs to the blue building, which, again, it gets interesting. Does to me, anyway. We good to go? Okay. So let's start at line 12, so we'll make sure we're clear here. Question, was there any effort made to search the blue building of the area you described in the basement of the courthouse as being behind B15 for files relating to Gregory Allen? Answer, yes. Question, okay, who did that? Can you describe it, please? Answer, Linda Dueno Dufek is the person who searched, if I may call it, the blue building for the old files with Mr. Allen. And I personally went downstairs to look for that traffic file involving Mr. Avery and did not locate it. Question, did somebody search for Mr. Allen's files in the B15 area of the courthouse? Answer, not to my knowledge, no. Question, do you keep or does your office keep an index of closed files? Answer, no, yes and no. I believe record keeping has occurred. I don't know the precise year, but it's very recent, within the last decade. Question, when you say it's very recent, do you mean that the decision to maintain an index of closed files is something that began within the last decade? Answer, I wasn't there when the decision was made as far as keeping track of files. I would say I wasn't there. I followed the continued practice. We don't keep a log, I should say, per se, of the files. We have a list of complaints that we file. We have it done on a computer. It has the case number and the person's name, and that's how we have a record for files that we've done. Question, okay, well, let me back up. Does your office assign a district attorney's case number to a file? Answer, since we've been on Protect, yes. If I understand your terminology is correct, I'm guessing Protect is a computer app. Question, okay. Answer, DA case number, do you mean court case number or DA case number? Question, no, DA case number. Answer, we now have a DA case number since, I believe, April of 2005, which is through our case management system called Protect. Yeah, there it is. Question, okay, do I understand that prior to April of 2005, your office did not number its files in any way except by circuit court case number? Answer, that is correct. Question, did you either by using an agency such as CCAP or office as of the clerk attempt to identify files that related to Gregory Allen? Answer, I did not. Question, and when files go into storage, are they stored in a way that allows one who wishes to locate a file to locate it by case number? Answer, they are not done by case number. They're done by year and alphabetized as well, and by type of case sometimes. Question, I'm not sure I understand. Does that mean that somewhere in your offices or in a storage room that you've described as being behind B15, for example, there will be files that were put there at a certain time period, and that group of files will be alphabetized? Or do the new answer, the files are placed in a large banker's box? Question, okay. Answer, and they placed there by year and they're alphabetized? Question, within the box? Answer, that's correct. Question. So if I wanted to go search for files relating to Gregory Allen, I could go down there and look at every single box there because they're alphabetized and look under the part of the alphabet that would include the name of Allen. Answer, yes. Question. And was that done to your knowledge? Answer. In the B15 area? No. Question. In the other area, the blue building area, was that done? Answer. To the best of my knowledge, by Linda Dueno Dufek. Yes. Question. Okay. Are you able to tell me that the files that are still within your courthouse in this B15 area would cover the particular time period, or would you not say that based on what you know? Answer. Yes, they would. Question. And what time period would that be, please? Answer. I don't know the precise time period. Some of the dates I saw were 2001 and forward up to point, where it would cut off would be from stuff in our office. Question. Sure. Answer. It may contain some 2000s or 99s, but I'm not sure. Question. Would you feel safe in saying that the files in the Manitowoc County Courthouse would be files that would be no earlier than relating to the Gregory Allen, would be or anyone else for that matter, I guess, would be earlier than, I don't know, let's say 1998? Answer. I think, including the clerk of court's office in your question too. Question. No, just that would contain your office's files. Answer. If you're strictly focusing on my files or the district attorney files, that would be a correct statement. Question. Okay. Answer. To the best of my knowledge, yes. A very accurate statement. Question. And is that why you didn't have anybody go through the files in the courthouse that came out of your office originally? Answer. In regard to Mr. Allen? Question. Yes, sir. Answer. That's correct. Question. Okay. How far back do the files that were kept in the blue building go? Answer. I would not know the answer to that question. Question. Well, do they go back to at least as far as 1983? Answer. I would not know the answer to that question. Question. Who would? Answer. I would be guessing only by saying that Linda Dueno Dufek, but again, I'm not familiar with the contents of that building. Question. How would you attempt to find files from 1983 that were generated by your office? Answer. Again, it depends. Question. Okay, tell me what it depends on, how you would do it. Answer. I guess first of all, we would do as we'd see if there's anything in our office. The second thing we would do is that Yvonne Circus in my office would contact Linda Dueno Dufek and ask if there was any of those files in the blue building. And then we would wait for Linda Dueno Dufek to produce those files to us. Question. Do you have any idea? And by the way, do you know how to spell Linda Dueno Dufek or whatever her name is? She's a public works, and I imagine it's Dufek, if I'm not mistaken, but I don't want to misspell her name. Answer. But I believe it's how it's spelled. Question. But it's a phonetic spelling from your point of view. Answer. Yes. Question. Okay. How would you have you yourself ever gone to that building? Answer. I've gone there. I don't know if I've been in that building or at that building in my life. I don't know the answer to that question, but I've never gone there looking for files, if that's what your question. Question. Okay. So it's your understanding that in order to carry out the request that you made your office staff to comply with paragraphs 2 and 4 of that statement, Ms. Dufek would have searched that blue building district attorney files for materials relating to Mr. Allen. Answer. For the files that would be potentially located in that building, yes. Question. In that file, and what files would not potentially be located in that building? Answer. Well, if there was stuff, as I said earlier, in our office or behind B15. Question. True. Well, you've told me that nothing prior to 1998 would likely be in the B15 area, and you've told me that there's nothing in your office relating to Mr. Allen, correct? Answer. Yes. Question. Okay, so answer. From 1998 forward, other than what I produced for you today, sir. Question. So this person named Dufek is not an employee of your office. Is that right? Answer. Correct. She's employed by the Public Works of Manitowoc County. Question. Do you know Whether there is any index kept of the district attorney files in the blue building. Answer, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, do you have any idea or how she would carry out that search? Answer, have never watched her do a search. That's just a policy that's been mandated by the Public Works to us. When we're asking for those types of files, we follow that mandate. Question, so you yourself don't know how those files are arranged in the blue building, correct? Answer, correct. Question, you're not aware of the existence of an index, correct? Answer, to the best of my knowledge, no. Question, and you relied on someone who is not in your office to determine whether the files that relate to Gregory Allen exist in that building. Is that correct? Answer, I asked her to get those files if they did exist. That's what I did. Question, and no one from your office made any effort to determine whether Mrs. Defect's efforts was to complete and exhaustive. Answer, we followed the mandated procedure. Mr. McCambridge, it's just yes or no. Answer, yes, I did not. I'm sorry if you want to repeat the question. Mr. Glenn, you want to read it back? Or read it back on record. But Mr. Glenn, question, do you have an answer? The answer is that is correct. Question, okay. They go off the record, back on. Line 11, question, Mr. Rohr, I understand that you did not cause a search to be made on CCAP or the Circuit Court Clerk's Office to identify criminal prosecutions within Manitowoc County of Gregory Allen. Is that correct? Answer, that is correct. Question, if you did that and you discovered that your office, through predecessor district attorneys, have prosecuted Mr. Allen in 83, 85, 86, how would you go about locating your office's files relating to those prosecutions? Answer, I look at my office first to see if it was there, but realistically, I know the answer would be that if we did have such a document or file, it would be in the blue building. Question, okay, and how would you determine whether such files are in the blue building? We would contact Linda doing a defect and a search would be made. Question, are there files kept there in the same fashion that they've been kept in the B15 area? Answer, I do not know the answer to that question. Question, are you aware whether these large banker boxes that you earlier described get repacked when the files are moved from the courthouse to the blue building? Answer, I do not know. Question, who in your office would know? Answer, I don't know who would, to be quite frank with you. Question, so you have no idea how files that belong to your office are kept if they're not currently in the courthouse? Answer, it's my understanding they're kept in the blue building, as I stated earlier. Question, yeah, but you don't know how they're arranged alphabetically, chronologically, by the size of the file, by the name of the prosecutor, any of those things, correct? Answer, that is correct. Question, so you have no way of knowing how it is that the search was conducted? Answer, correct. Question by Ms. Tveck, assuming that she's the one who carried out the search. Answer, I don't know who did the search. Question, why don't you tell me your communications with anybody in the world to try and locate files relating to Gregory Allen in response to the subpoena? Answer, there was nothing in our office. Question, and how did you know that? Answer, Mr. McCambridge, the question asked for your communications with anybody in response to the subpoena with respect to Gregory Allen. Witness, okay. Answer, my communications were because Mr. Allen, what I did is contact Linda doing a defect. Actually, I had Yvonne Circus first call her. I believe it's earlier this week. Then I spoke personally to Linda and asked her to look for the files. Question, and did she respond to your request? Answer, she did. And what did she say? Question, what did she say? Answer, she said that she would do it and she produced them. Whatever the heck was out there, she produced. Question, did she tell you that she was unable to find any files relating to Gregory Allen for earlier years? Answer, I did not speak to her personally. She dropped off, whatever they found in regard to Mr. Avery and in regard to Mr. Allen at my office. There were no files that she dropped off in regard to Mr. Allen. Question, okay. So what happened is that she dropped off files relating to Mr. Avery and had no conversation with you. Answer, that is correct. Question, did she have conversation with anyone else in your office when they spoke with you? Who then spoke with you? Answer, I can't say who. What she said was what she said and who she spoke to. My understanding is she probably spoke to Yvonne Sarkis because, again, she came to tell me this is what Linda had dropped off. So I'm assuming that's what occurred. Question, okay, but you have since that time, and when was that, by the way? And that the referent in my question is, answer, are you talking about the files I received? Question, is when is it that Ms. Defect dropped off the materials? Answer, it would have been, I believe, Tuesday of this week. Question, okay, between Tuesday and today, have you contacted Ms. Defect? Answer, I have not. Question, have you caused anyone else in your office to check with her to see if there were to ask her what she did in search for the Allen files? Answer, no, I did not. Question, so I guess at this stage, what you could tell us is that your office currently does not have within the confines of your office and the Manitowoc County Courthouse and any files relating to Mr. Allen. True? Answer, other than what has been produced to you today. Question, other than what's been produced? Sure. True? Answer, yes. Question, and you would have no reason to believe there would be files in the courthouse outside of your office and outside of the clerk's office that would relate to Mr. Allen's criminal prosecutions. Answer, to the best of my knowledge, that is correct. Question, and as for whether or not there are files that are in the blue building, that would be up to whether or not Ms. Defect understood the instructions and conducted the search and found nothing, correct? Answer, that is correct. Question, and those are assumptions that you made based on the fact that she dropped off materials relating to Mr. Avery but had no materials relating to Mr. Allen. Do you understand that right? Answer, that is correct. Question, where did you get the materials relating to Mr. Allen that you produced today? Answer, they were in the original district attorney's files involving Mr. Avery. Read that again. They were in the original district attorney's files involving Mr. Avery. Also, they may have been materials, I'm not sure 100%, from the DOJ as well. I'm going to stop right there. Let's hold it right there. Because I think that's an interesting statement they just made. Let me mark that, line 20. Okay. So what he's saying is that the materials that they have on Mr. Allen were included in the stuff with Mr. Avery. Is that what you all understood?
Yes.
Yes, it definitely was. Lisa.
So I guess my question is, why? We've had this discussion before, and I don't want to get into any kind of wordplay or word salad, but that's what I understood. Remember the passage in Man Part 1 where Griesbach called Vogel, and his first question was, what did you find in it? Something about what did you find in the Avery file? Something of that nature.
Right.
About Gregory Allen. I don't remember the exact passage. Maybe someone that's watched it more recent can remember, but I thought that was very interesting that everything that they found on Allen was in Avery's file. Why would that be? And who would have done that? Rohr says clearly he's trying to make. I guess he's trying to make it very clear he had no connection to that. Christina?
I mean, it had to have been Vogel, right? Was he
Vogel?
He trying to bury the Vogel stuff or the Allen stuff in the Stephen file?
Sounds
trying
like it.
to erase it?
Well, just kind of keep it out of the, without destroying it outright, just kind of keep it out of the, if somebody went for looking for Allen, they wouldn't find it.
Yeah, it's quite odd that it would have it. And then you have Risa Evans, who was the DA or the public defender, who believes she was never told about Gregory Allen, although Vogel says he told her. And the bait stamp on the sheet they say they turned over, was that ever verified? because I think he probably pulled all the Gregory Allen stuff out before he turned over discovery to the public defenders. And then once he turned discovery over, he put Gregory Allen's stuff in the discovery file.
You talking about Vogel? You talking about what Vogel did?
Yeah, to make it appear like he had turned it over like he's supposed to, but yet we know he didn't, because they didn't investigate him. But they investigated the other two guys that they told him about.
Right. I don't know. Well, as far as being verified, that I can't answer. Not that I've heard anything about, but
yeah, it's very.
Our William is asking who was in charge of the files.
Well, I mean, you have to kind of understand the process. I know William doesn't live here, so basically, when a case happens, an event happens, the prosecutor, if it's deemed necessary, will open a case file, and then whatever materials get produced, police reports or whatever investigations, things get turned into the prosecutor. The case file gets built. The prosecutor has their own file, and they are the ones responsible. And prosecutor files are handled differently than other files. They're not public record. I mean, you can request prosecutor files, but they're not required in any fashion to share them with you, and most of the time they will not. So even if some of their files are already part of public record, they will not produce anything for you. Anyway, so prosecutor files is what they're saying here is, in the DA's office, the prosecutor's office, they create a file. It stays in the file for however long until it gets closed. When space becomes a premium, older files get moved out to another section, which in this case was the basement of the courthouse. When that section got full, then they got another storage area called the Blue Building. They moved stuff from the courthouse to the Blue Building. The Blue Building is in charge of the Public Works Department, which, again, this blew me away. Why would the Public Works people be in charge of prosecutor files? Because that gives a member of the public access to that. Non-lawyer, no nothing. They have access to the public record, to the prosecutor files, which to me, I thought was really against the...
it makes no sense.
No sense. None. I've never understood that. I remember the first time I read this, I was like, what? So, I mean, I'm going to guess, this person's trustworthy. But this Linda Duino defect couldn't have been the only one who had access to that building. I'll bet on it.
No, so. I bet you it was any Public Works Department employee who had a set of keys.
Yeah, so I'm sure.
Remember how they did the investigation into the keys for the evidence room, and how they were talking about the Public Works Department and the master keys and all of that. I'm sure.
Oh, you're talking about you're talking about the clerk's office.
Yeah, in the clerk's office. Well, I bet you it's the same sort of setup. The person who, maintenance, would have a key in case they needed to get in there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's, so basically they're unsecured, and that's kind of scary.
It really is. It's really kind of crazy. Again, prosecutor files are handled differently in just about every state that I'm aware of. Especially, I know they are in Wisconsin as well. So, hopefully, I answered William's question, whether it's somewhat understandable. I know he doesn't live here, and the laws are different, and things are handled differently. But sounds like.
Keep in mind how a certain blood vial was found.
Well, yeah, that too, because that brings back the clerk's office, and there was a lot of discussion because you had to have a key in the cipher, as I understood. If I'm remembering correctly, there was a cipher pad on that door, and there was also, I don't want to say this wrong, and I don't want to put out any misinformation, but as I'm remembering, also there was another building that connected to the clerk's office. and there was a door from that building that led. Now you had to have the master key and the cipher to open the door from. I think it was I want to say it was the public library. That there was a passage from there to the clerk's office to that area where they had Avery's file, that storage box, that box. So, yeah, I don't know. I know there was a lot of talk about different people and lost master keys, as I think Bibi was talking about that.
There were 10 keys, if I remember right.
Yep.
And one of them got lost, and they were able to account for the other ones. Just wanting to know where the blue building was. Do we know where it was located?
I can't tell you that. I don't know. I don't know.
Oh, Jess Rhonda says across the street from the courthouse.
She may be correct. I don't know that I ever ran that down. I'm sure somebody probably has, but it seems to me like at some point you're not in too far distant past there was a fire at that building, I think there was a fire, but I don't want to say that wrong either. I know that there was some kind of fire at a building that held some materials, whether the prosecutor files or not.
Didn't they get wet?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some damage, and I know that they did lose some material, but I don't know how much. I don't think they didn't lose the building, but I guess that Rhonda could be. She's probably more right than I am. I can't imagine it would be too far away, and it would be within, pretty close by. Not like strong way out in the county somewhere. So.
Well, and it also sounds like this room B, whatever it is, it sounds kind of like it's a dumping ground. They don't really check there. They go check at the blue building. They check in his office, but they don't really check. So basically, if they wanted to hide something, they could just shove it in that B whatever room and not go look there.
Well,
right?
Well, no. Well, I mean, no. Well, no. He can go to. He can has access to the B-15 room. That's at the downstairs below the court, behind the courthouse. But the blue building is one he didn't really have access to. That's the one that the public works lady that Linda defect.
Didn't check anything on the list in that B whatever room.
Well, basically, he went down and looked for that. He said that a traffic incident with Avery, but he didn't find anything. They just sound like their filing system is for crap. They don't really have one, like a filing system, at least for the older files. Again, to me, that's just, it's just crazy. You wouldn't have some kind of minimalistic, very basic filing system so you know where stuff's at.
I think that's done by design.
Right.
Well, I can't really disagree with you, Cyber Cop. Make it too easy to find stuff.
Yeah, since you're gonna, make a habit of framing folks and making evidence disappear, you've got to make sure that your document filing system is confusing and disruptive enough to back that up.
Yeah, really, really clunky. Well, I was gonna say clunky, but it's really non-existent. So, yeah.
Jeff Jones says, according to Wikipedia, that's a 1951 storm caused damage to the glass dome on top. So,
yeah, I know there was a fire to some public access public works building, and I would say that's happening within the last 5 years. I can't remember exactly, and I can't. Again, I'm not trying to say that these prosecutor files were burned, but I do know that some materials were lost. Can't tell you exactly what they were. Apparently, it wasn't anything too fantastic, or I would imagine some reporter would have latched onto it, but we don't have anything like that.
I believe that fire was just maybe sometime within the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's been pretty recent.
Yeah, and the things that they did lose were not burned. They were like somebody was saying a minute ago, they were damaged by water by putting the fire out. If I remember the article correctly.
Sounds right. Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah. which is why, for the most part, digital storage is far superior where you can. So, anything else before we move on? We've got probably maybe 10 pages left in this one. We good? Okay. So we're at line 20. So basically, where we ended up was that they found this material within Allen's material within the Avery's file. So I think we're at line 20. Question. Okay, let me ask you to assume that there was a photograph taken of Gregory Allen in 1983 in connection with an arrest of him in Manitowoc County. Okay? So let me ask you to assume that the arrest that was made of Mr. Allen turned into a criminal charge issued by your office, albeit with a predecessor district attorney. Let me also ask you to assume that there was a conviction in that case and that the clerk's file would be closed as a consequence of that conviction, having occurred almost, roughly 20 years ago. Okay? Making those assumptions, are you able to tell me, first of all, whether the file that may have been created in the DA's office on that would likely still exist in your office? Mr. Cavalli, objection, no foundation. Mr. Cambridge, you can answer. Witness, okay. Answer, I don't know the answer to that question. I can tell you that Bev Badker, maybe to move this along a little bit, if I may, is that certain files, because of the age of the files, were destroyed. By Mr. Glenn. Question, okay. Answer, again, before I was there because of the age. Question, do you have any information regarding the destruction of files at a time when you were not a part of the DA's office? Answer, no. Question, do you have any information from Ms. Badker or anyone else regarding the destruction of files that would help us identify a file that may have been destroyed? Answer, I don't know the answer to that question. Question, okay, do you remember the hypothetical I was asking? Answer, I do. Question, okay, if you wanted to try and find a photograph of Mr. Allen that may have, admittedly, we don't know, that may have been placed in the district attorney's office file, how would you go about looking for it? Answer, again, I would check to see if such a file involving Mr. Allen existed using your hypothetical. If I was unable to locate that, I would then possibly contact law enforcement to see if they had such a photo had existed, and that's what I would do. Question, okay, with respect to the 1983 case, are you in a position to tell us whether you know, are you in a position to tell us whether there are in existence in the Blue Building any files that go as far back as 1983? And I don't want, and don't limit that to what you know of your own knowledge, because I understand that you don't even know for sure if you've been in there, but based on other searches that you've asked, that have asked to be made by others. Other answer, I've never searched for a file from 1983. Question, okay, have you, answer, so I can't. Question, okay, go ahead. Answer that question. Question, have you ever searched for a file older than that? Answer, no. Question, what's the oldest file you have ever had occasion to search for? Answer, not me. Mr. Bascom, other than the Avery file, because that's been searched. You mean other than the file materials that's produced today pursuant to the subpoena? Mr. Glenn, I mean any files in the world. Mr. Bascom, okay. Answer, well, the oldest file that you had produced, I produced for you today, is a 1985 file involving a charge involving Mr. Avery. Question, okay. Answer, and that was a felony file. Question, any other files that would fit within the category in your mind of being very old? Answer, I don't classify things as being very old. I'll look at them whether or not they're available. Question, okay, let's talk about files that are available then. Are you able to tell me any files that are available that go back as far as 1983? Answer, again, I've never searched for one from 1983, so I can't answer that question. Question, and you're unwilling to rely on the people in your office and the person whose name is defect that cause searches to be done at your direction? Answer, I would rely on her, yes. Question, okay, so as you're sitting here today, are you comfortable in saying under oath that your office does not have control over any file that Mr. Allen, other than those that you have produced today? Answer, are you including 971.23 as well in your question? Question, I'm including a file, not a police report. That would be a 971.23 document, but a file. Answer, that's correct. Question, okay. So you would feel that the fact that Ms. Defect didn't return anything back to you is enough to make you comfortable that no such file exists over in that building. Is that right? Answer, yes. Question, okay. Answer, she's found files in the past when we've made a request, and if they exist, she's found them. Question, again, but I mean, I take it you understand my questions because I'm hearing you, and you haven't really had occasion to ask her to look for records that are as old as these are. Is that true? Answer, that's an accurate statement, yes. Question, okay, and how do we find her, Ms. Defect? Answer, if I give that number to my attorney, and if Mr. McCambridge, well, I just think you're just identifying where she works. Mr. Glenn, question, yeah, that's what I mean. Do you have anything more than that about you were talking about? Answer, she works for the Manitowoc County Public Works Department. Question, right. But I mean, there is a subdivision in that department or anything else like that? Answer, no. Question, would allow me to identify her more easily? Answer, if you just call up the Public Works Department and ask to speak to her, they'll get you to her. Question, okay. Mr. Glenn, I don't think I have anything else. Anything else you want? Mr. Kelly, no. Mr. Glenn, no, that's all. Mr. Cabelli, I have nothing. And that's it for part one from Mr. Rohr. Before we move into part two, any other comments about any other comments about Mr. Rohr and this crazy way they file?
Well, don't you get the impression that Mark Rohr wanted to put an arm's length between him and Gregory Allen and the files on Gregory Allen? A
10-foot arm.
Yeah. And what's remarkable here is that as district attorney, right, you would think he would know the history of certain people and their crimes, and yet he's giving the impression that he knows bugger all about Gregory Allen, right? And he obviously knows nothing about specific files. He appears never to have requested these files except for the ones that he's now produced. But don't you get a feeling, I could be wrong here, but don't you get a feeling that as soon as Culhane in 2003 essentially exonerated Stephen Avery, don't you think that everyone would have been scrambling through their personal files and putting on the shredding machine?
Absolutely. And he was there.
Yeah. So basically they're covering their asses. And what's very important is that Mike Griesbach was there for the whole thing, right? And like I said, if you go through his book, he gives a behind-the-scenes, blow-by-blow account of what took place, right? Which is really interesting. And if I could just have a quick word,
please.
I reckon the other person that was giving a lot of confidential information would have been Detective Bergner, he's from the City of Manitowoc Police Department. He's the one that did a beeline to Tom Kacerik and told him, I think you've got the wrong guy. I think it's Gregory Allen, right? And you know why I said that? Because it's remarkable that Peg Lautenschlager said, if there was better communication between the police forces and police departments and the county sheriff's office, the name Gregory Allen would have been brought up.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Huge
right?
pile of bullcrap.
Yeah. So you can see that Glynn and Kelly, they're setting out the groundwork to expose the corruption, right? And the big kingpins, Kacerik and Vogel, they were at the end. And the reason why they were at the end is because these two guys are accumulating all this information, and they would have unleashed hell on both of them, right? So it's remarkable that that whole deposition, Rohrer could not answer one freaking question, not one.
Nope. I mean, other than just the generals, well, if I don't have it, I'll just call over to, Miss Defeck, and we just tell her what we want, and we just kind of wait.
Correct. So he basically wanted to be at arm's length between anything between him, his department, and the Gregory Allen. Completely at arm's length.
These degrees of separation are, I'm sure
Correct.
that the Sapricop and you and others have alluded, I think they're done by design,
Oh, no question. No question. I mean, what did Sheriff Peterson do? He put out a statement to everyone. You are not to talk to the press about Stephen Avery.
That's right.
So you know straight away that the cover-up started taking place immediately because they knew this was coming.
I would imagine that, that was probably the word throughout the county employees. You don't talk to the press at all, period.
Correct.
It wasn't just the press. They weren't allowed to talk to each other either. They just couldn't keep their mouth shut.
Yeah. Well, I can imagine some of them had several bees in their bonnet, and they were talking behind, I'm sure it was common conversation amongst, especially those that worked in the office. It was.
I mean, Couchet had his mugshot hanging on his wall. They enjoyed reveling in the fact that they had set him up and put him in prison. And the fact that they got caught doing it was not sitting well with these men. And they could not talk about it because they were all scared to death.
But it's interesting, Sunshine Christina, that's exactly who I was going to mention as a potential or someone that could have been broken. That was Jean Couchet, because Jean Couchet made that disparaging mark about Kacerik when he said, "Oh, he'll give you a handshake and stab you in the back at the same time."
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that Jean Couchet.
I'd like to know what made them part ways.
What made them
and then
part?
he had that mysterious heart cactus right the day before or the day of the trial. So
Day before trial started. Doc, Doc, you don't think that Couchet saying that? You don't think he fell off the ham mailing list, do you? The Christmas card list.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it before. It's a big old boys club, right? And if you've ever been part of one, you understand the machinations of how things work. I mean, I was part of an academic structure which was, all old boys, right? All professors, assistant professors, and they looked after each other, right?
Sure.
This would be exactly the same in the Manitowoc Sheriff's Office, right? They're all trying to basically gain each other's respect, get each other's back, self-promotion, blah, blah, blah. And Jean Couchet rocked the boat because he directly criticized Kacerik, right? And what happened to Jean Couchet? They found him dead with a Bible in his hands. I somehow don't think Jean Couchet is of the Holy Spirit type, right? But do you know why they kept on asking Rohrer about Gregory Allen's 1983 photo? Does anyone know why?
I probably do, and I forgot. Yeah. Probably. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, the reason why is because it's missing.
Oh, I know what you're doing. The mugshot.
Yep. And so the question is, right, the mugshot that they actually used was an older mugshot from, I think it was 1987, right?
Yeah.
So when Gregory Allen was arrested in 1983, there was a mugshot. Do you realize that no one can find the mugshot? Yeah. So in other words, they would have used the 1983 mugshot to show Penny Bernstein, right? Not the 1987 later on, right? So you want to get mugshots which are closer to when the incident occurred,
Sure.
right? So that's why Glynn is saying to him, "Oh, well, what about this photograph in 1983?" That's a loaded question. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think that they had actually had, without going off into other depositions and different things, they had actually had looked at a lot of files prior to that. I'm sure they had, and others had looked at these files too. And I know that Glenn and Kelly knew that as well. They did know because
here's something that just occurred to me, and maybe Jinx would know this, or people from the area. How prolific is the Masons in this area of Manitowoc County? Anybody know?
I would imagine they've got a lodge there.
I'm not sure about the Masons, but there's a thing called the
Knights of Columbus.
That's very like popular in all of the papers, which is a similar type of fraternity.
There are Masons, though.
Yeah, there are Masons in Wisconsin, but when I read like obituaries and stuff about some of these people, they all have this Knights of Columbus fraternity type thing with
fraternal order.
And all of those things. It's like a fraternity, a brotherhood of some sort.
And do we know if any of our current characters or cast of players are members of either of these?
See, the problem with that is you don't really read about that until they're gone, until their obituaries. They will say they were a member of the Knights of Columbus. So, like, for instance, like, I believe it's Fox. Judge Fox's father was part of this. There are others that are in this Knights of Columbus. I'd have to go back and read all the obituaries of some of the people that I do know.
But when you see the main players like getting awards and their pictures in the paper, they're wearing their rings.
Well, those could be Mason rings.
You talking about Masonic rings, BB?
Yeah. Like order rings. Yeah.
This order too, right? We just don't know. I don't know enough about it. It was something I was researching a while back, but
I was going to say most people in a community know who the Masons are and who's in it, and most organizations like that. It's not, the Masons are no longer a secret organization like they used to be years and years and years ago. It's not necessarily openly discussed, but you know who they are.
Right. And they probably like the club that he talks about, Bagada or whatever his name is, that secret club. Could that be part of it? Like these because I was looking into it in that way with these Knights of Columbus, because they just seem to be all over Wisconsin. Like the guy who was living with Cheryl Spates Duvall when she went missing, his brother was like a Grand Master of this Knights of Columbus. Right. So, yeah, I've looked a little bit into it. I'll have to do some double checking on some of that to see who all I see.
Yeah, that might help answer the question of how all of these different agencies work so easily together in the whole framing situation. Because if they're all involved in these groups, then that now it starts to make more sense.
They have another way to communicate.
The Blue Brotherhood isn't enough? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah.
It's true. This would be like fraternal order, where they always going to have each other's back, no matter what. As far as your Knights of Columbus, you have Elks and Moose and Shriners and Civitan. Yeah. There's quite a few of these that are like that, and they do. They give degrees for every move that they make. But if you know that some of these exist in your cities or towns or wherever some of these people live, if you'll go online, you can typically do a little bit of research to find out what that chapter number is. And then you can look that up. And a lot of times you'll find a list of some of their members, especially if they're major players.
Doc, you have something?
I was going to say, what is very interesting was when they took Ken Kratz's computer and they looked at the pictures. He's got a picture of a Grand Master all dressed up in his potential uniform. I forgot his name, but he's the guy that criticized Ken Kratz, and he's a Grand Master or something. It's in the list of his photographs. I can't remember his name, but isn't that interesting that Ken Kratz would have a picture of him on his personal computer?
It is strange.
I always thought so.
Yeah, was it great? Do you remember Mystic Jinx what his name was?
I can't recall off the top of my head. I'd have to actually go and look it up. But I know what picture you're talking about.
Yeah. A Grand Master.
That is interesting. Well, I mean, the Masons are everywhere. I mean, my dad's oldest brother was a Mason, and where he belonged to, the chapter he belonged to, geez, I went to it was actually a presentation they were doing. It wasn't like private, but it was an open thing. And God, I don't know how many people. I mean, I was young, but there were hundreds, if not 1,000 people there. There were a lot of people there, man. It was whatever they were doing.
There's 183 Masonic lodges in Wisconsin.
There you go.
And the Grand Lodge is located in Dousman, which I've never heard of.
Why do I just want to keep thinking that I read somewhere, and it could have been misinformation that Couchet was a Mason. Why do I keep thinking that? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to go into that.
Herman, I believe, is who you're thinking about. Like, I know Paul Capaldi had conversations, I think, with
Herman
him about, because Rob Herman has a ring on. He knows a ring finger or something.
That's probably it. But, that would give them, anyone that belonged to any of those organizations, another way to communicate that was completely off the record, and they could do talk about whatever they wanted without it being ever discovered. So, but I think it's interesting, looking at Rohr's deposition, and what little bit did get revealed was that he's saying he didn't really know anything about Allen, as Doc pointed out. Don't know nothing, see nothing, hear nothing, that kind of thing, which we know is not true. And I don't know. It just strikes me as really strange that they all of a sudden have, or I say they have no files, not necessarily all of a sudden, but they have no files in the office that he could lay his hands on. Whatever was produced came back with it from the DOJ. That's basically what I got from it. So, anything else before we move on to part two? And I'm probably not. Let's see where we're at here. I think we're right at 2 hours, so we'll do some of part two, and we'll finish up part two at another time. I'm not going to, because it's probably like 70 pages, and I'm not going to read for another hour. But it does have some interesting information in it as well that does pertain. Again, it's more about Greg Allen, and I think there's more about Griesbach in this one too as well. So, anything else before I continue? We good? Okay. So it looks like a little over a month later, September 22nd, Rohr gets called back for another deposition. And we'll look at the list of lawyers right quick. Covelli's there again, Bascom. Can't remember if this Fallon was there or not. John Mayer on behalf of Kasurik. And then, of course, McCambridge. And Avery's there, Jody's not. So let's get right to it. Okay. Question. Good morning, Mr. Rohr. Answer. Good morning. Question. Would you tell me your age, please? Answer, I'm 40 years old. Question, and when did you finish law school? Answer, I apologize for being accurate. I don't know what that means. I think that's a typo. But I believe it was in 2002 I graduated in January. Question, all right. Answer, I'm sorry, 1992. Question, what law school did you attend? Answer, Thomas Cooley Law School in Lansing, Michigan. Question, and you took office in March of 2003 as the district attorney of Manitowoc County, is that right? Yes, I did. Question, and were you appointed by Governor Doyle to that position? Answer, yes, I was. Question, would you tell me the positions that you held between the time that you graduated from law school and March of 2003 as a lawyer? And if you can do it, just list them in order from 1992 up through March of 2003. Answer, I was an associate attorney for the law firm of Winter, Fox, and Stangl. The name of the law firm for that was Olson, Winter, and Fox. And that's in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. Question, was that throughout the period is that the only employment? Answer, yes. Question, okay, and during that period of employment, as an associate attorney, did you specialize in any particular areas of the law? Answer, no. Question, did you practice criminal law at all? Answer, yes. Question, what kind of work did you do in criminal law? Answer, any type of criminal law that came into the office. Generally was assigned to me. I took public defender appointments. I did felonies and misdemeanors in traffic. Question, do you know who your immediate predecessor in the office was as the district attorney in Manitowoc County? Answer, yes. Question, who was that? Answer, Jim Fitzgerald. Question, and do you know about how long he had served in that position? Answer, not the precise time, no. Question, approximately. Answer, rough estimate, at least 15 years. Question, and do you know who his predecessor was? Answer, I believe it was Elma Anderson. Question, and do you know how long Elma Anderson served as the district attorney? Answer, no. Question, and Elma Anderson's predecessor was who? Answer, I'm not certain, but I believe it was Dennis Vogel. Question, okay. In the course of your practice as an associate attorney at your law firm, did you have occasion to be on the other side from the district attorney's office in the Manitowoc County on various cases? Answer, can you please, what do you mean by other side? Question, you were defending somebody that they were prosecuting? Answer, yes. Question, okay, can you approximate the number of times that occurred? Answer, I cannot. Question, okay, can you fix a range? Answer, I cannot. Question, what would you say it was more than 100 cases? Answer, yes. Question, were you ever involved in a case in which Jim Fitzgerald himself personally was on the other side from you? Answer, yes. Question, prior to taking office as a district attorney of Manitowoc County, did you ever have any discussions with Jim Fitzgerald about the Stephen Avery case? Answer, no. Question, have you ever had discussions of any kind with Jim Fitzgerald prior to your taking office in March of 2003 about Gregory Allen? Answer, no. Question, how did you first become aware of the DNA results that exonerated Stephen Avery with respect to the sexual assault of Penny Bernstein and inculpated Gregory Allen? Answer, I found out about the results from a phone call. Question, from whom? Answer, the crime lab in Madison. Question, do you remember who the person was who called you? Answer, no, I do not. Question, what were you told as the best as you can recall it? Answer, the conversation basically, I don't recall all of the details, but she informed me that the DNA results came back to Gregory Allen in the samples that had been tested. Question, and not to Stephen Avery? Answer: that was not discussed at the time, from my recollection. Question: at the time you were contacted by the crime lab, did you have an awareness that this was testing was pending, or was it a new subject to you? Answer: I was aware of it. Question: how were you aware of it? Answer: Jim Fitzgerald told me about that before he left the office. Question: on one occasion or more than one occasion? Answer: I believe it was the one occasion from my recollection. Question: and was it a discussion that took place between the two of you? Answer: yes. Question: was it part of a briefing where he was briefing you on bringing you up to speed on various cases as to just relating to this particular case? Answer: I don't recall. It was just one of the things that was mentioned during the conversation we had. Question: okay, was anyone else present for that conversation? Answer: no. Question: prior to that conversation, had you ever discussed the Stephen Avery case with Jim Fitzgerald? Answer: no. Question: tell me everything that you can remember about what Fitzgerald told you. Answer: he just told me that from my recollection, that there was testing being done. He pointed where the file was in the office, and that was it. Question: what was the file to which he pointed? Answer: the Stephen Avery file. Question: in prior testimony, you marked and identified in dialogue with my colleague, Stephen Glenn, 5 boxes of materials, exhibits 95 through 99. Do you recall that? Answer: yes, I do. Question: the file that you just referred to, the Stephen Avery file, is that part of those exhibits as far as you know? Answer: yes, to the best of my knowledge. Question: okay, at the time that you had your discussions with Jim Fitzgerald, it was known to you as the Stephen Avery file, and it was segregated as such. Is that right? Answer: in my office, yes, which was his former office. Question: so the file itself was in Jim Fitzgerald's former office, your office, after you took office? Answer: correct. Question: where did Fitzgerald go? Did he leave office? Did he leave office at the time? A: he lost the election. Question: where did he go from there? Do you know? Answer: I do not know precisely where he went after that. Question: do you know generally? Answer: not precisely, no. I know he went into various other DA's offices, but I don't know where he went. Question: what DA's offices did he go to, as the best you can recall? Answer: the only one that I know of is the most recent one was Villas. I don't recall the county before that. Question: as far as you know, he's practicing in Villas County now? Answer: I don't know what he's doing right now. Question: when did you know that he was practicing in Villas County? Answer: I don't recall. I just heard about it. Question: when did you hear about it? Answer: I don't recall. Question: since the time of your last deposition, have you made any further search for any documents concerning Gregory Allen or Stephen Avery? Answer: I have not. Question: to your knowledge, has anybody at your behest done so? Answer: at my request? Question: Answer: at my request? Question: at your behest? Answer: I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by behest. Forgive me. Question: at your request, at your inquiry? Answer: all right. At your direction? Answer: no. Question: after you received the phone call from the crime lab telling you that the results had gone back to Gregory Allen was inculpated in the sexual assault of Ms. Bernstein, who was the first person that you spoke with? Answer: well, to be precise, what the phone call was that the hair samples were Gregory Allen's. That's what I was told on the phone. Question: okay, what did you do? Who was the first person you talked to? Answer: Mike Griesbach. Question: where? Answer: in my office. Question: was anybody else there? Answer: at that time, no. Question: how long did the conversation last? Answer: I don't recall. Question: what did you tell Mike Griesbach? Answer: I told him about the phone call, and we had to decide, what we were going to do on the basis of the phone call? Question, let me just back up a little bit. As I understand it, this conversation that you had with Fitzgerald about the pendency of the Crime Lab's examination of the samples in the Stephen Avery case took place shortly after you had won and he lost the election. Is that right? Answer, I didn't win the election. Question, who won the election? Answer, Mike Griesbach. Question, how did it come to pass that you became the district attorney? Answer, Mike Griesbach did not take office. He declined it. And then an appointment process took place. I applied for it and was appointed by Governor Doyle, March 17, 2003. Question, the conversation that you testified to earlier with Jim Fitzgerald took place shortly after you took office. Answer, it took place after I was in office and before he left the office. Question, and about how soon after you took office did he leave the office approximately? Answer, at most a couple months. Question, okay. Answer, maybe less. Question, so let me ask you this. From the time that the conversation with Jim Fitzgerald until you received the information that you told us about that you received from the Crime Lab, did you have any kind of discussions about Stephen Avery case with anyone else in your office? Answer, no, I did not. From my recollection, no. Question, did you take responsibility for the then pending case file and Crime Lab inquiry during the period of time between when you took office and when the information that you told us about came back from the Crime Lab, or was that file assigned primarily to someone else? Answer, the file was left in the office. Nothing was done with it. Question, did you consider that it was assigned to anyone? Answer, at the time, no. Question, okay, again, for the same period of time, the period of time between when you were informed by the Fitzgerald up to when you received the phone call from the Crime Lab personnel, did you have conversation with any other person outside the district attorney's office about the Stephen Avery case? Answer, no, I did not, from my recollection. Question, when you took office, were you in any fashion of your knowledge aware of the Stephen Avery case? Answer, no, I was not. Question, so the first you knew of that was when Fitzgerald briefed you on the extent to which he did on the case? Answer, that's correct. Question, at the time that you received the phone call from the Crime Lab, was Gregory Allen known to you at all? Answer, no, he was not. Question, so it was completely a new name when you got the call from the Crime Lab? Answer, yes. Question, I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 123 and ask you to make a moment to examine that, if you would. Mr. Cobelli, is this the September 18th? Mr. Kelly, no, this is September 4th. Mr. McCambridge, off the record, why don't you give me, go off the record. Okay, back on, Mr. Kelly. Question, Mr. Rohr, have you finished examining the document? Answer, Exhibit 123? Question, yes. Answer, yes, I have. Question, all right, have you seen it before today? Answer, yes, I have. Question, what do you understand it to be? It is a memo from Mike to me, or not to me. It's a memo that Mike prepared in regard to this case from the conversation that took place on September 3rd. Question, all right. And is this the combo, this is Mike Griesbach's recording in writing of the conversation he had with you after you received the call from the Crime Lab? Answer, yes. Question, is there anything in there that you think is inaccurate? Answer, the only thing is I'm not sure if it's in box 1 or box 2, but the rest of the document is accurate. Is there anything that you recall the conversation between you and Mike Griesbach on that occasion that you want to add to what is recorded in Exhibit 123? Answer, we may have discussed, like I said, other things, but I don't recall exactly verbatim what was said. Question, okay. He refers to the fact that you were on CCAP. Do you see that? Answer, yes. For the record, what is CCAP? Answer, it's basically a circuit court access program that we can do for criminal background checks for people who have been charged with and convicted with crimes throughout the state. Question. When the occasion referred to Exhibit 123, you were on CCAP, were you looking for information about Gregory Allen? Answer, yes. Question, do you recall what you found? Answer, his date of birth. We may have found other things that I can't recall about his record. That's all I can recall at this time. Question, all right. At the time of this occasion on September 3rd, when you and Mike talked, did you talk at all about wanting to find further information that might be in the district attorney's files about Gregory Allen? Answer, no, we did not. Question, at any occasion after that, did you have any such conversation with Mike? Answer, no. You're saying to look for other information regarding Gregory Allen in the file? Question, in any file, anywhere in the DA's office? Answer, no. Question, to your knowledge, did Mike Griesbach make any effort to find any further information concerning Gregory Allen in the files of the district attorney's office than the document that's identified as Exhibit 123? Answer, I can't say what he did on his own. Question, you don't know. Answer, none at my direction. Question, do you know whether or not it was at your direction if he made any such efforts? Answer, he did not make any such effort at my direction. Question, okay, but what I'm asking you is whether or not he made it at your direction, do you have any knowledge that he made it? Answer, no. Question, okay, after this conversation with you and Mike Griesbach, to whom did you next speak about what you had been found out from the crime lab? Answer, my recollection is Gail Prost was then brought into the office. Question, who is Gail Prost? Answer, the assistant district attorney in the office as well. Question, and was she brought to the office at your direction? Answer, yes. Question, and why did you ask to see her? Answer, I wanted to discuss with her about doing some legal research in regard to Mr. Allen. Question, tell me what you recall of those conversations. Was Mr. Griesbach present when you spoke to Gail Prost? Answer, I believe so. From my recollection, yes. Question, tell me what you recall of the discussion on that occasion that you had with Gail. Answer, I was going to have her check out the statute and the statute of limitations issue of whether or not Mr. Allen could be prosecuted potentially if the case would arise after doing research through the file. Question, when you say after doing research through the file, tell me what you meant by that at the time. Answer, it was after Mr. Griesbach and I are going to review the file to determine whether or not we should have the case dismissed against Mr. Avery. Question, so what did you do? What did you direct Gail to do? Answer, to start doing some potential legal research if we could charge Mr. Allen. Question, did you ask her to seek any further information that might be available concerning Mr. Allen? Answer, I did not. Question, did you have any knowledge at the time of whether Mr. Allen was incarcerated? Answer, I looked at CCAP. That was my only basis that made my determination that he was incarcerated at the time. Question, so based on what you saw in CCAP, you thought he was in jail at the time? Answer, at the time of the conversation? Question, at the time of your conversation with Gail? Answer, yes. Question, was he incarcerated as you reviewed CCAP? Answer, I didn't know where he was incarcerated. I'm sorry, I repeat that question. Where was he incarcerated as you reviewed CCAP? Answer, I didn't know where he was incarcerated. I just knew from CCAP that he had a sentence and that he was serving. Question, did you know what the sentence was? Answer, I don't recall the precise sentence, no. Question, well, what's your best recollection of what you discovered about Mr. Allen when you looked at CCAP and talked to Gail Prost about it? Answer, there was a prison. Well, I didn't talk to her about the prison sentence. There was a prison sentence on CCAP that Mr. Allen was serving. Question, do you recall what the length was? Answer, not off the top of my head, no. Question, do you recall whether what the crime was? What the crimes were? Answer, not precisely, no. I'd have to look at it. Question, well, generally, what's your best recollection? Answer, I don't want to guess. I'd have to look at CCAP record to be sure. Question, I know you don't want to guess. I'm just asking you what your best recollection is. Answer, it may have been sexually related. Question, okay, did Mr. Griesbach have any conversation with you, with Miss Frost at that time? Answer, I don't recall. Question, after you and Mr. Griesbach spoke with Miss Frost, well, strike that. Let me ask you, what did you tell Miss Frost when she came in to see you about what you had heard? Answer, heard from what? From the crime lab. Answer, I don't recall precisely what I said to her. My only recollection is about researching the statute of limitations issue on Mr. Allen. Question, did you tell her what you had been told by the person from the crime lab? Answer, again, as I said, I don't recall precisely what I said to her. Question, I'm not asking for precise recollections. All I'm asking for is your best recollection. Answer, and I don't know for sure what I said. Question, you don't have to know for sure. Just tell me what your best recollection is. Answer, the only thing I recall, what I talked to her about is the statute of limitations issue. I don't know what else I talked to her about. Question, okay. Answer, it may have come up, but I don't know. Question, all right. After that conversation with her and Mr. Griesbach, with whom did you next speak about what you had been informed by the woman from the crime lab? Answer, I don't recall. Question, did you at some point decide to call Mr. Tinker at the Attorney General's office? Answer, I did. At the time you decided to call Mr. Tinker, had you made any further announcement in your office concerning what you had been told by the person at the crime lab that you've already told us about your conversation with Mr. Griesbach and Ms. Frost? Answer, could you repeat the question? I apologize. Let's read it back. Answer, I don't recall. Question, do you have any recollection of announcing to other members of your staff and office at the time the crime lab had made the determination that Stephen Avery was exculpated and Gregory Allen was inculpated in the manner of the sexual assault on Penny Bernstein? Answer, yes, I do. Question, what's your recollection of that? Answer, I probably told the office about the situation and that we were not to discuss it outside the office and to keep it within the office. Question, tell me at your best recollection, precise or not, about the words that you used when you told the office, as you put it, about the situation. How did you describe the situation? Answer, I don't recall. Question, you have no recollection of that? Answer, I don't recall what I said. Question, do you recall generally what you said about it? Answer, like I said, I just made an announcement and I don't recall the words I used other than what I've already told you. Question, meaning that you said something about the situation. Answer, yes. Question, do you recall whether you told the office the substance of what you had been told by the woman from the crime lab? Answer, I don't recall if I mentioned specifically about the crime lab. Question, do you recall what you told them about Stephen Avery? Answer, no, I don't recall. Question, did you use Stephen Avery's name? Answer, yes. Question, do you recall what you told them about Gregory Allen? Answer, no. Question, did you use the Gregory Allen's name? Answer, yes. Question, do you remember who was present? Answer, no. Question, do you recall whether Brenda Peterson was present? Answer, I don't recall. But she would have been notified. Question, would have been? Answer, yes. Question, by who? By you? Answer, yes. Question, notified of the occasion of you making an announcement to a group of people or notified separately? Answer, I don't recall if I did it individually or as a group. Question, all right. Do you recall whether Beverly Badker was present? Answer, she was made aware of it. Question, do you recall whether she made aware of it by you? Answer, yes. Question, do you recall whether it was in a group of people or separately? Answer, I don't recall. Question, do you recall whether Ms. Mertens was made aware of it? Answer, no, not from me. Question: do you recall whether independently of you, Mr. Griesbach, made anybody in the office aware of it? Answer: not that I'm aware of, no. Question: okay. Answer: other than he was present for the conversation with Miss Prost. Question: all right. At the time that you made Ms. Peterson and Miss Badker aware of it, you had already spoken with Mr. Tinker. Answer: I don't recall. Question: how many conversations have you with Mr. Tinker about the Stephen Avery matter? Answer: I don't recall. Question: can you estimate them? Answer: I talked to him about it on a couple of occasions. I do not know the number. Question: you talked to him on the phone or in person? Answer: both. Question: in person, you talked to him in Madison, is that right? Answer: yes. Question: but not in Manitowoc? Answer: correct. When you were in Manitowoc, you talked to him by phone? Answer: correct. Question: meaning he didn't come to Manitowoc? Answer: correct. When you went to Madison, you were accompanied by Mr. Griesbach? Answer: yes, I was. Question: you brought with you the Stephen Avery file from the district attorney's office? Answer: we did. Question: did you bring anything further? Answer: we just brought the file. Question: all right, can you tell me how many times you spoke with Mr. Tinker before you went to Madison and brought the file? Answer: I do not know. Question: when you got to Madison, did you speak with Mr. Tinker? Answer: yes. Question: did you speak to anybody else? Answer: yes. Question: who? Answer: we were met with during the meeting with the Attorney General Peg Lautenschlager. Various other assistant attorney generals were present. Don't know all their names. DCI investigators were present. Question: let's start with the assistant attorney generals. Did you talk with Mike Bauer? Answer: I don't recall the names, as I said, of all the assistants that were there, but he may have been present. Question: how about Tom Fallon? Do you recall whether he was there? Answer: Tom Fallon. Question: Fallon. Yeah. Answer: yeah, he was present. Question: all right, Jennifer Nashold, was she present? Answer: I don't recall that name, but she may have been present also. Question: Monica Burkhart-Brist, was she present? Answer: again, she may have been present, but I don't recall the name. Question: all right, Robbie Lowry? Answer: she may have been present, but I don't recall the name. Question: do you remember the identity of any of the DCI investigators? Answer: no, not. Question: does Deb Strauss ring a bell? Do you remember whether she was present on that occasion? Answer: she may have been present, but I don't recall the name. Question: all right, by that time, that is to say, by that time you met in Madison at the Attorney General's office, you had received information from people in the district attorney's office about Gregory Allen. Is that right? Answer: yes. Question: who are the people from whom you had received the information? Answer: I don't recall precisely. Question: give me your best recollection. Answer: it may have been Bev Badker and Brenda Peterson. Question: anybody else that you recall? Answer: no. I'm going to stop right there. That's enough. Questions, comments, concerns, rage?
I don't recall anymore.
I think in this I think somebody counted it up, and I can't remember who it was, but I think somebody counted it up that in this one deposition, he gave the I don't recall reply 137 times. In this one deposition. But I don't recall exactly how many. I'm not the one that did it, so that's probably easy to look up, though. I could probably do a word search on it, and it would show me in the search term. It's a bunch, though. I know that. So
plausible deniability.
Yeah, definitely. So we moved into a section where, like I said, he had instigated this investigation. So
the biggest case of this county is just about to get exonerated because of a DNA test, and you can't remember a soul you talked to, or how you talked to them, or how you told them And it's only 3 years ago.
Yep. And apparently they don't talk about it within, I'm sure they have other cases. I'm sure they do. And other things come up. But you can't tell me that they didn't talk about this case. I'm sorry.
No.
This is all they talked about. This is all they talked about it. They can play like they didn't talk about it, but they were talking about it.
Well, I'm sure they did. I feel comfortable. They talked about it a great deal, and they had to. It's hard to say what kind of plans were laid and so forth, and to combat this.
Yeah, they were all trying to figure out what they needed to give them, what they needed to say, and what was the easiest way to do the least amount of damage and to get out of this unscathed. And they failed miserably. Well, actually, I guess they did well because...
No, they succeeded quite well.
Yeah. Stephen's in prison, and none of them got in any trouble. But,
No, in fact, several have been promoted.
Yeah, that's the single most frustrating fact about this. They got away with it completely the first time, and they're about to get away with it completely the second time. And not a single one of them will ever face any kind of criminal or possibly even civil action because of it.
Yep, that's true. That is truly the most frustrating thing because there's, this is just one aspect of this humongously large file. People I was talking to somebody the other day through private message, a newer person, and I just told them you got to pick pieces of this case. If you try to take it all in at one time, you will die. You will absolutely die. There's too much. Now we're off into we talked about last week we were talking about new FOIAs and we're trying to continue growing the case file and find out other aspects and. These new records that we got, as hard as they were to read, it had to be done, or we're just hypocrites. I'm sorry, we are. As interesting as that is, the case file, and we're nowhere near at the end of what's out there. Nowhere near it. And it's I've invested so much time now. I know others have too. I want to know as much as I can, whatever was, where will we come to at the end of, the next 6 months or the next 6 years. I want to know as much about the cases I can find out. I've invested too much time now. I have to know. So.
Well, and that's almost kind of the trap or the double edge of that sword, because the way that the agencies involved have treated it, they're kind of making sure we'll never know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, because some of the stuff is proven virtually impossible to get. I'm really irritated. What's that?
They're hoping they're making it impossible. They are hoping.
And we give up, and we just give up. Sorry, I'm not made quite that way. I get frustrated just like everyone else, when you make these requests and, you get told no, I've given you everything, or act like they don't know what you're talking about. Really frustrating, really super frustrating. This last one that I've been trying to get it since July. And I started in Calumet. That didn't work. Ended up sending a bunch of emails to the DOJ. And then I thought, well, I'll try Manitowoc. Yeah, I've told you guys this story 50 times now, but these phone calls that were someone at Manitowoc made of Jody, somebody recorded those phone calls, 78 of them, and gave them to Calumet County. They gave them to Deb Strauss. And Larry's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've given you everything. Well, I don't really think you have, because you really kept records custodian at the time. So,
yeah.
So anyway, here we are. They've at this point, he's getting back into time. He's made the point of getting in there that him and Griesbach took the Stephen Avery file to the DOJ, and he wants everything. He's going to want everything looked at. We're not going to move forward. We're going to stop right here, and we'll pick this up at another point and continue with part 2 and hopefully get this one and move into Fallon's deposition as well. And it's really interesting. There's other ones that are really interesting too. It's the more you know about pieces of the case that are really, they're not really at trial. You don't hear about it in any of the motions and that kind of thing. It's a completely separate thing. It's part of it though, and it can't be ignored. It just can't. Doc?
I was going to say, there's a couple of issues here. First of all, Cherie Culhane sat on the samples for 1 year, right? Now, what concerns me is twofold. Did Culhane actually get the results very, very early on, disclose the results to her superiors, and they kept it quiet in terms of, okay, what are we now going to do? Because they had to work out a strategy in order to minimize the blowback to them. Cherie Culhane actually did the test twice, right? They made her repeat the test to ensure that the results were correct. She did the test twice. Now, the thing is, did she actually do the test twice at the same time? Or did she actually do the test a year ago, kept it quiet, and then as sort of like a farce, she did the test again to say, look, you know, I've duplicated the results and it's definitely the DNA profile of Gregory Allen, not Stephen Avery. Because it's pretty obvious that what Mark Rohrer has tried to do is to distance himself from Gregory Allen at all costs, right? So you think about it. You've got such an incredibly loaded case like the Stephen Avery case. He's been saying that he's been innocent all along, right? For years and years and years, he's been saying, look, I'm innocent. Remember in 1996, Judge Hazelwood granted that DNA testing result, and it proved that there were alleles that didn't belong to Stephen Avery or Penny Bernstein. And Hazelwood said in court, well, I'm making a judgment call here. I don't trust the results. I don't believe in the results. Penny Bernstein could have touched anybody, and hence they got their DNA on her. But how were they going to explain the fact that they were under her fingernails, right? So Judge Hazelwood made a call and sent Stephen back to prison, right?
Yeah,
I cannot believe. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to comment along just to add in, didn't he comment that could have been Penny's husband or some other person that was on it?
It was the paramedic or the EMT.
Correct. But if you're going to get DNA under your fingerprints, you have to claw at them and basically dig on their skin, right? Yep. Unfortunately, in 1996, they only looked at 3 alleles. And mind you, the forensics laboratory made 2 mistakes on Stephen Avery's DNA profile. They made 2 errors, right? And I proved how they did it. But what I'm saying is, isn't it incredible if that had been, say, anybody but Stephen Avery, a member of society, you know, basically a good guy, Judge Hazelwood would have said, yep, there's plenty of reasonable doubt there, release him, but not Stephen Avery.
Nope. So
how can you explain the fact that such a monumental outcome like that, and Rohrer goes, oh yeah, I just asked this lady about, well, what about the statute of limitations? Notice he still trivialized Gregory Allen. And are you trying to tell me that Mark Rohrer didn't know what he was in for? And he goes, oh, it was probably sexual related. Have you seen Gregory Allen's file? And Mike Griesbach says in his book, it made Stephen Avery look like a good guy.
But he looked like a Girl Scout.
And that's saying something.
It's terrible. And he completely, well, I think it was for sexual assault. He was incarcerated, and he wanted to act like it was, he didn't know anything about it. Bull crap.
You didn't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like pulling teeth for him to get that sexual conduct out of his mouth.
Yeah, because he knew he knew that at the moment he implicates himself in having a greater degree of knowledge, he's doomed. He is doomed. So he's trying to pass it off and blame everybody else and keeping an arm's length at Gregory Allen. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, what type of DA are you if you don't even know the files in your own building or office? It's so bad. It really is bad.
It reeks, because you know that when the crime lab called him and told him that, you know, it's Gregory Allen, it's not Avery, you know they were on CCAP and probably making other phone calls as well. The CCAP would have told them.
Yeah. So there's no doubt he would have had the file in front of him, right? He would have had the file in front of him. And don't forget, after Cherie Cohen came out with the result, of course, they rang Penny Bernstein and told her.
Oh, yeah.
And she went into depression, thinking, oh, my God, I picked the wrong guy. I destroyed his life. Now, think about it. All these depositions would have been a black eye and a slap in the face to the MTSO. Yeah. They weren't going to take this lying down. This was downright embarrassing.
Well, and, you know, thinking back to, you know, the phone, you know, because Gregory Allen was about taunting his victims. The phone call she got afterwards, and she called the sheriff, and it's like, we got the right guy, don't, you know. So correct. I'm sure that was running through her head as well.
Correct, and that's why I believe that Detective Bergner was the whistleblower.
It's very possible.
Yep, because he's the one that went directly to Kacerik and said, you need to have a look at this guy. Seriously, he fits the MO.
Yeah, it was Bergner, and Bergner took someone with him. He had, I can't remember who it was, but it wasn't just Bergner from the city police. It was someone else that went with him too. So Kacerik absolutely knew about Allen. Absolutely knew.
Kacerik denied that took place.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember the key tenet for a lawyer is you never ask a question for which you don't already know the answer. So it's quite clear that Lynn and Kelly already know all the answers. So and given the nature of the questions and the direction they're taking it, they quite clearly have somebody on the inside, or somebody from the inside has come to them.
Yeah, and I'm certain, I'm trying to remember now, it's been too long since I've looked at this stuff, but I feel certain that Glenn and Kelly had the investigators' file, or they had files of the police reports from Lehman and Strauss. Or just remember, there's a whole lot more to the depositions that we have. We don't have all these reports and exhibits that they had.
They had the DOJ file, the 627-page file we have.
Definitely they definitely had that, but I feel certain that they had been through them, or at least one of their investigators had been through some other files at the DA's office. I can't remember who actually went there, but there's more to that part of it too. Yeah.
And they likely had any other criminal history Gregory Allen had in Wisconsin or any other state as well.
He's quite the monster. And the guy should have been locked up years ago. You know, it would be interesting to. It wouldn't surprise me that he's not responsible for the death of that teenager in North Carolina. It would not surprise me at all. But you, Christina? Christina.
What was that? Repeat that again.
Would it surprise you that Gregory Allen, being responsible for the death of that teenager in North Carolina?
Oh no, I'm like 99% positive he's responsible for that. After reading the stuff that I've read, I think he actually and I wouldn't be surprised if he's not responsible for other women's deaths. To be honest,
and rapes and sexual assaults.
Oh, multiple sexual assaults.
I mean, ones that we don't know about. People that
I would not be surprised to learn that Gregory Allen had assaulted 100 women.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either. Not at all.
No.
And I don't say that just willy nilly. You know, I don't innocent until proven guilty. But given you look at this guy's case file, oh my God.
Yeah, I'm not just pulling a number out of my head here.
No, I know.
I'm serious.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Can I just make the comment?
Please.
What is disturbing was how a lot of these misdemeanors, this Gregory Allen's misdemeanors, were downgraded by Vogel.
Yes.
They were downgraded by Vogel. So instead of being charged with something serious, they were what can I say? They were given a lower category, and hence he got away with a lot of things. So you could imagine that there are individuals in Vogel's office, in the office of the DA, that had enough and spilt the beans, and gave people like Kelly and Glynn private information, insider information, because how else can Glynn ask all these questions?
Oh yeah,
he certainly knows what's going on.
Gregory Allen would be charged with a crime, and they would let him off with a fine. Gregory Allen would be charged with a fine, and they would dismiss the charges. Gregory Allen would be charged with a crime, and these are sexually related crimes: peeping, prowling, and it was over and over and over again. It's sickening the leniency that was allowed, that they gave him. It makes no sense when you look at the book they threw at Stephen every time he came through that door. It's night and day.
It is. It's crazy too. I mean, and actually, Doc, even before Vogel's time, there were charges that just seemed to like they would reduce the charge for whatever reason. They would just lower it.
I'm not sure who actually said it, but that tends to indicate that Gregory Allen was a protected species, and people look the other way. It could have well been a confidential informant.
That's why people were saying so long ago that he was a CI. Or asking the question.
I have two theories of what he is or what he was. He either had dirt on someone high up about their sexual proclivities, because he had them too. He liked to peep. So he was roaming the streets in the middle of the night, peeping in windows, looking for his next victim, right? So maybe he peeped and saw something he shouldn't have and got evidence of that, and it would have been very damaging to someone's career. Or he was also a prolific crackhead. Maybe he stole something, or he happened into the drug house and saw the wrong person there and had dirt on someone that way.
Or ran across some people that he may have hung with that told him this or that, and he found out more, and it's possible.
Yeah. Because homosexuality in early 1980s in Manitowoc County was frowned upon. You did not openly show that you were attracted to the same sex. You just didn't do it. And I know for a fact that someone high up in Manitowoc County government is gay. And if Gregory Allen had that knowledge, he could have been threatening to out him.
It's very possible. I don't know. He got out of trouble somehow many, many, many times. I mean, the guy was clearly, he should have been locked up ages ago. And of course, they obviously got it wrong in 85, and he went on to assault and several more women, at least 2 that we're sure of, but it's hard to say how many more.
And then don't get me started on how they treat him in prison. That makes no sense either.
Oh, how many times he's been moved?
Well, just in how he's in a minimum medium security prison, and he is a registered sex offender for life, like Brendan, but yet he's doing push time. Like, it makes no sense. He should be doing hardcore time like Stephen and Brendan. I mean, Brendan's in a medium prison now, but Avery Allen has done very little hard time for his crimes. His crimes have been in the lenient or less secure prisons compared to.
You mean his prisons have been in the medium security?
Minimum to medium, and he leaves every couple of years and goes to a I'm going to get it wrong, a group home type setting, which is a facility licensed by the state of Wisconsin to hold 5 or more individuals.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane. If y'all look at his movement sheet, it makes absolutely no sense if you compare it to Stephen and Brendan's. You know, I don't know what it's like he's the golden child or something.
I mean, there's not a lot he could do now. I mean, he'd be 75. What's that, Supercop?
I was going to say, just to play devil's advocate on that thing, we have no idea what his life has been like inside prison, because I don't care whether it's max or medium security. Sex offenders do not fare well.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And if they found out, some of these guys found out that he assaulted young children, oh boy, Katie, bar the door. They will tear him up.
I can guarantee you right now, Manitowoc politics would not extend into a prison.
Some prisons here are only sex offenders, though.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes.
Keep them all together. Keep them all together.
Right. Yep.
Interesting. All right. Anything else before we wrap up for the night? We'll definitely finish Roar up and probably get started on Mr. Fallon. I don't know if we'll wait. We'll probably do that sometime this week, and so we can continue on. Because, like I said, there are 30 depositions, and I kind of hold myself responsible for not getting to them sooner and getting it out there. People discuss, think about, use it as research or not. I mean, I know this is not for everyone. I get that. It's not new. We've had these for a while, and people that are interested have probably looked at them or at least pilfered through a little bit. For me, and I know for many that are here and many that are listening, that this is part of the case and they want to know. So, and of course, as anything new comes along, if we get some kind of new for you, we'll definitely get that out as quick as we can. So everybody can use that for their own research as well. Anything else before we're 3 hours, so that should be enough time. Not another marathon Sunday night. That was great last week. It was I can't thank everybody enough for sticking around. That was hard to hear. It was hard to read. But I think it was really important that we get that out there and let everybody make up their own mind.
Yeah, I wish we had the videos, because that would be a lot more telling than just the words on a screen. Yeah,
that's something for these depositions. That's something I actually I thought about sending Banana Man a message and say, hey, what about looking at getting a price for these videos now? We've had these for a while. Maybe they're willing to deal. That would be great to have all the videos.
But if they were on the non-disclosure, we couldn't share them anyway, right?
Yeah, but it's maybe, I don't know. That's it's an all negotiated thing. Just remember,
spend all that money and can't show them to anyone.
Yeah, but just remember what a Guilford done. Somebody sent him the link to all these depositions. The Guilford then put it in. He posted the link in the Guilford sub, so they're not private anymore. They're absolutely not private, and complaints were made, reports were made, and they did nothing at all. It's like they weren't interested. It's like, okay. And as far as I know, nothing has happened at all. That link is still there. Reddit didn't take it down.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see the company that has the rights to the depositions going after J-Jacks. They're going to go after bigger fish.
This only helps them and their publicity, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, Shoko released these things anyway. Remember, Solo made
well, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So these are his depositions, not ours.
Thank you, Solo.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know that. I doubt that they. I mean, I don't know what they might do. I mean, to me, this only gives them publicity. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't, because we're not like showing it in 50,000 theaters around the world. That's not what we're about at all. Anyway, so anyway.
But the other thing is that Mike Griesbach documents it extremely well in his book. So it's out there.
It's out there anyway.
The information, the chronology of the events is out there. So there's nothing new. There's nothing new at all. All this goes to show is how very, very clever and divisive these guys were, and how they were very evasive. Now, the only way you're going to get that, I don't recall, I don't remember, is if they all got together in a meeting with a whole bunch of lawyers, attorneys, etc., and they all agreed on a unilateral plan of attack, because potentially this could have exploded in their face. And it's pretty obvious that Kelly and Glynn were privy to a lot of internal information, and they were slowly working it up until they finally got to Kacerik and Vogel, and that's when they would have unleashed hell on both of them. But of course, what happened in the meantime?
That's right.
Stephen Avery's pinned for murder. And when you think about it, it needed something so drastic to stop the depositions, and boom, as if by magic, it happened.
Yep, that's exactly.
Conveniently.
Correct, Phoebe. How convenient.
Well, remember, this is a month and 10 days before October 31st as he gave his deposition.
Yeah, now think about it, guys, right? You've got Stephen Avery sitting there with Jody on a lot of these depositions. Now, is Stephen Avery thinking in his mind, I think I'll kill someone just for the sake of it to let all these poor guys off the hook? No, he was rubbing his hand. He was rubbing his hands. He was going, you beauty, they're going to finally get their justice.
That's right.
Bang. Bang.
That's exactly right. I agree.
Yeah, not only that, he was going to make all these people look foolish, and he was going to get a big fat paycheck at the end of it.
And they were not going to let that happen. The day they filed that lawsuit, the target went on him. No doubt. Okay. Anything else? Anything anybody wants to announce before we get out of here? Anything upcoming? Alice, you got something going with your channel? You're planning on unleashing on us? I think Alice is asleep.
She's not here right now, but Becca, not us, but Becca, she has a birthday party coming up for Brenda.
Oh, that's cool.
And
awesome.
Her channel.
Well, she needs to.
I'm here. No, nothing new. Nothing new at the moment. I'll post as soon as I know anything, but thank you.
Okay, that's cool. I knew you were talking about it the other day, so. Rhonda, you got something going on?
I'm going to be going live tomorrow night.
We're losing you. We're losing you. Say that again.
You're breaking up.
You're breaking up.
Yes, I do. I'm coming back tomorrow. Is that better?
A little bit.
Peter's probably tired. I'm going to be coming back tomorrow to my channel. So it's been a long spring and summer for me, and I'm ready to try to get back and start talking about Daniel's case again. He's got some pretty big stuff coming up. He should be going to trial in December. And so, anyway, I'm just going to kind of do a brief overview and kind of talk about a few things tomorrow. And then following week, I'll get back into covering the accusers. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you very much. Jinxie?
I hope I can get everybody get everybody to come back tomorrow night.
Yep, get us an announcement so everybody can see it, and we'll come.
It's in my room in Foul Play, and then I also have it over in Daniel's Truth. So
cool. Okay, very good. Jinxie, you got something coming?
I'm waiting for Sapricop to do a live on Ryan.
You're waiting for me? Say the word.
When are you going to start your channel?
Oh. What was that about hell and freezing?
Nothing new here. Otherwise, I'll probably put on Ryan one of these days.
Cool. Well, I'm just waiting for. I've got a couple of things out there that's don't foresee. Well, maybe one thing might come back. I don't know that it's anything new, but it'll be something that we'll have that we can put in the playlist on the channel. And then I know Sunshine's waiting on a few things, and you can speak to that if you want, Sunshine.
I'm just waiting on some stuff, and when we get it, we'll have an open mic, and a lot of this will make a lot more sense.
Yeah. And of course, Dr. Silkman will have Uncle Ken again this coming Saturday, and
I apologize in advance.
And Sammy, I know, is busy working her butt off and has been.
Yeah.
That's okay. It's got to be done. All right. I'd like to thank everyone for dropping in with us again on a Sunday night, and we'll get out of here and let you go have a adult beverage or whatever the case may be. We appreciate you coming. This has been a Foul Play production.